Okay, how are we looking over there? Are we ready to begin?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, first order of business is I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. I call the October meeting of the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission to order. Item number 2, can we please have a roll call, Amanda?
Yes, Chair June Hansberger,
Present.
Vice Chair Patricia Trouth,
Present.
Chris Duncan,
Here.
James Gross,
Present.
Glenn Johnson,
Present.
David Thiele,
Here.
and Jim Wong.
Here.
Okay, item number 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first order of business is approving the minutes from the September meeting. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to look over the minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you get that, Amanda? Okay. So on to number 5 is oral communications. Do we have any oral communications tonight?
We do. We have 2 speakers tonight. First, we have Rick Smith, followed by Mindy Letourneau.
Okay, fabulous.
Smith. I own the property at 396 North Coast Highway 101, the Leucadia Glass Building, right there at the roundabout. Over the last 3 weeks, we've had a car going, they estimated 60 miles an hour at 10:30 at night, just go straight through the roundabout, didn't attempt to turn, took out a bunch of signs, and then he hit the concrete bench. And the guy behind him luckily pulled him out of the car. There was 2 of them. Got him down on the ground. They noticed some sparks happening, and the car blew up in flames. And so the neighbors called me and said, your building's on fire. So they, luckily they got it out. Everything's okay. Last Friday night, I guess a motorcycle and the car were playing tap the lights, and the motorcycle got closer and closer. As he pulled around, somebody was coming up from the Union undercrossing, and so she put on the brakes, and the guy hit him and got thrown off and had to go to the hospital. My concern right now is the 3 roundabouts that we have on Santa Fe, 2 on Leucadia Boulevard. When you go up, there's a big red sign that says, yield to traffic and circle. And so everybody does. Ours, since they put it in, does not have that. I was given the excuse that the reason we don't have to do it now because the laws have changed. I'm pleading with you because of safety, don't make something that you don't have to do. Do it like the rest of the roundabouts. I know the ones in residential areas, they've had them on Eolus and Hymettus and stuff like that. That's different. And the one that I'm in front of my shop is Highway 101, and there's so many people coming, and especially as they're going north, I'm going straight. These people have to stop for me. And the skid marks that you see I'm just trying to avoid a death or major accident. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much for your comments. I did also want to just let you know that what you're speaking about is one of our action items tonight, number 7. So
I didn't see it on the agenda.
That's okay. It is. There is going to be a discussion about the turn restrictions. It's 7A, and the design installation for the El Portal roundabout. That is the correct one you're speaking.
Then I'll stand and do it at the appropriate time.
Yes, no, it's okay. I appreciate your comments because I'm not sure it was directly related, but I did want you to know that it is on our agenda for this evening, and we will be speaking about that.
Oh, yeah, because there's ballards that they have to put in front of my shop and stuff like that.
Yes, so if you would like to stick around for that discussion as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Our next speaker is Mindy Letourneau.
Hello. It's my first time here. I'm very excited. I didn't know you had this meeting, so thank you for that. I am the HOA president of 19 homes on Enclave Court. We're recently built as of 2018, 2019. We're right off of Tennis Court Drive and El Camino Real. You may know of the Grauer School that's right on the corner of El Camino Real and Tennis Court Drive. And I know there's been a recent reduction in speed to 50 miles an hour on that El Camino Real street. They've also extended out some of the red paint. I don't know if it's north or east side of the street. But what we're seeing is we're continuing to see traffic sometimes up to 70 miles an hour. We did have an assistant engineer come out on September 30th and meet with myself and some of our homeowners as well as Grauer School. And we voiced our concerns, and so she had something come out with, had them come out with a trailer for a couple days to show people what their speed was. It was placed in an area where you slow down to turn, so I don't know that everyone was realizing what their speed was. But the reason that I'm here is that I wanted to ask why it is 50 miles an hour within 500 to 1,000 feet of a school. Number one, and then number two, I understand there's going to be some restriping and some changing around, but and I know this is a thoroughfare now, particularly with what was done to Santa Fe. A lot of people go straight now, and they need to get to that freeway fast, apparently, so they can get to work. And there's, kids. We can't even cross El Camino Real without taking our lives in our own hands. There's no turn onto or turn off of. It's pretty scary. So I just wanted to ask for your assistance in, bringing this to your attention and seeing if there's something that we could do. Personally, as a homeowner who plans to stay in my house, I'm willing to take legal action if I need to. Certainly not the road I'd like to go down, but I do think that according to the law that should shift with a school being there. With that said, that's really all I have to say, but thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for your comments tonight. Okay, that's the end of our public speakers. Sorry, I was waiting for you to say that, but I'll say that. Number 6 is special presentations and proclamations and announcements. So next on our agenda is 6A. This is updates on the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan and other mobility manager updates from Mr. Buck. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. And this evening, my presentation will be about the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. So this evening, we are pleased to present the Commission an update on the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. We'll call it CSAP going forward. This data-driven planning effort is a direct result of the city's continued work to reach the Vision Zero goal of 0 traffic deaths and serious injuries on Encinitas streets by 2028. The CSAP builds on the previous local roadway safety plan by analyzing newer crash data to understand how issues and trends have changed, to then develop a list of priorities, strategies, and projects the city can consider to help reach the Vision Zero goal. The presentation tonight will include project background and context, sharing of data analysis results, followed by Q&A and discussion. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to Angelica Roca with Farron Piers.
Is that on? Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Angelica Rocha, and I am a senior transportation planner at a consulting firm called Farron Piers, and I have been working closely with the City of Encinitas to develop this comprehensive safety action plan. As Nick mentioned, today we're going to cover project background and context, the data analysis results, or preliminary data analysis results, a little bit of an update on our outreach and engagement, and next steps and key milestones to come. So first for project background. So the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan will be using the Safe Systems approach, which is adopted by the federal government, as well as the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, as well as our local MPO, SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments. And it starts with the mindset that death and serious injuries are unacceptable. It's a holistic approach to safety, and this Comprehensive Safety Action Plan will be rooted in this approach. It's organized into 6 categories that you see on the screen: safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, and post-crash care. So the Safety Action Plan is being guided by requirements set by the U.S. Department of Transportation. The recent infrastructure bill came out with some guidance to help inform safety action plans and what should be included, what we define as a comprehensive safety action plan. So the intent of developing this plan is to satisfy as many requirements required by the US DOT and therefore make the city eligible for additional funding for transportation infrastructure projects with the US DOT. The items in purple and bold are the items that will be satisfied as part of this plan. These are 6 of the 8 requirements, which the US DOT requires 6 out of 8 to be satisfied. So those are goal setting and leadership commitment, which the city has already committed to a goal of ending fatal and serious injury crashes by 2028. We will also be doing safety analysis, which I will be speaking about here today. We will be including an engagement and collaboration, some of the outreach that we'll be doing. We are looking into equity and doing a specific equity analysis. We will be looking at policy and programs, our process, and then strategy and implementation. So what makes a comprehensive safety action plan? I tried to lump sort of the key steps here, and these are sort of the many steps that occur along the way into implementing a comprehensive safety action plan. We start with what I call build. We're making the database. We're combining all these different data sets that are readily available to us, such as officer-reported crash data, roadway data that includes number of lanes, posted speed. We also look at census data to figure out who lives in these communities where these crashes are happening. And then we've also combined very unique data to the city of Encinitas. This is place data. We're looking at schools in Encinitas, we're looking at parks, we're looking at beach access points, trying to look at data where we know there's a high concentration of vulnerable road users, people who are biking and walking. And then lastly, equity. We then move to analyze. This is the part that I'll spend time talking about here today, really looking at the crash trends and all the factors influencing where are the places where the highest concentration of crashes are happening, the contextual data, and again, equity. We will also engage. So we've done one community engagement activity and have others planned. We'll present to you twice during this process and then ultimately go to council. We will then prioritize. So in addition to already looking at where there's the highest concentration of crashes happening, we'll then do a prioritization to figure out what's the most important segments to address first. And then identifying strategies and projects and specific location-based engineering solutions. And then lastly, we'll have a final comprehensive safety action plan. And I'm happy to take questions on the approach as we move at the end of the presentation. So our data analysis. We have 3 primary data analyses that we'll be conducting. The first is the crash analysis, and this analyzes officer-reported crash data to explore trends, as well as develop a network or segments that make up a disproportionate number of crashes. We also incorporate systemic, which is where we dig a little bit deeper in the data to understand what are the other things like roadway characteristics or land use characteristics that are prevalent where crashes occur, and specifically where fatal and serious injury crashes occur. And then lastly, we'll look at equity. So exploring crash trends of vulnerable road users, which we define as bicyclists and pedestrians, and then also, vulnerable victims, vulnerable road users, bikes and pedestrians, and then vulnerable victims, people who are 65 years of age and older and 19 and under. So what does the data tell us? So the data in this analysis looks at 2018 to 2022. Again, that's officer-reported data only. We do recognize that is underreporting in all of our data sets. And the study, I just want to note, ends at 2022 for a couple reasons. First, the data is provided by the state. It's a statewide database called SWITRS. And the data for 2023 is still provisional, meaning it isn't final yet. Second, the city leveraged work completed by SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments, for the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan, and this data period aligns with SANDAG's efforts and analysis. So looking at the trends, we look at the trends of all crashes by modes, and overall, if we look at the top infographic, we see that trends were declining from 2019 to 2021, and this is likely due to behavioral changes during the pandemic, and then we see them start to rise and head in the wrong direction in 2022. The bottom graphic illustrates KSI collisions. KSI is an acronym that denotes a crash where at least one person was killed or seriously injured. We'll use that acronym throughout this process, but I tried to kind of institute that fatal and serious injury crashes is KSI to help you remember. Fatal and serious injury crashes appear to fluctuate in the years, with a high in 2018 to what appears to be more of an average in 2022. This is also similar to bike-only KSIs, whereas pedestrian KSIs appear to be trending downward and now remaining constant. Next, we want to look into victim profiles by age. And this is really interesting data. The first chart on the left illustrates the percent of an age profile according to the census. So just want to make sure we understand that total population is derived from the census. And so we grouped population into 3 categories: 19 and under, 20 to 64, and 65 and over. The middle chart indicates all the reported crashes by age, and this allows us to compare how victims show up in our officer-reported crash data compared to the left graphic, which is the overall city population. The right chart is where we look at exclusively the fatal and serious injury crashes. This is where we see how age impacts crash severity. We see that while seniors 65 and older make up 20% of the city's population, but they make up 35% of the fatal and serious injury crashes in the city. And just wanted to note that this is aligned with national research that if an older adult is involved in a crash, the severity is typically greater to that population. The next slide is looking at locations. So where are crashes happening? And we compared signalized intersections versus a non-signalized intersection, like a stop-controlled intersection, and then also a mid-block. And so mid-block means crashes happening between 2 intersections. We see that most of the crashes are occurring at signalized intersections, followed by mid-block. But then when we look at the fatal and serious injury crashes on the right, we see that most of the fatal and serious injury crashes are occurring at mid-block. This is really important because this is likely due to the fact that a kinetic energy of a vehicle, or the force of a vehicle, is greater than our body's ability to tolerate that transfer of energy. And so the kinetic energy, or the force and the impact of a vehicle, is really significant when they're traveling at the roadway speed at mid-block. So next, we also look at what are the types and circumstances that are happening. So first, we have our top types of crashes that are happening. 34% of fatal and serious injury crashes are broadside crashes. I included the definition just in case folks were not aware. So the broadside is the front of one vehicle hits the front of another vehicle. I think we commonly anecdotally call these T-bones. The next 2 crashes are a vehicle hitting a pedestrian, represents 26% of all fatal and serious injury crashes. This is also very aligned with national research. We know that if a pedestrian is involved in a crash with a vehicle, they tend to suffer higher severity crashes. The next is hit object. 12% of fatal and serious injury crashes were a vehicle hitting an object. This is very aligned with the next point, which is what are the circumstances. Speeding accounts for 24% of fatal and serious injury crashes. Generally, hit object or veering off the road has to do with speed. The other is under the influence. So 17% of all fatal and serious injury crashes occurred under the influence. And then lastly, automobile right-of-way resulted in 12% of fatal and serious injury crashes. This is when a motorist makes a maneuver that doesn't respect another motorist right-of-way. So an example is yielding at intersections. What's promising about this data is that all 3 of those circumstances are preventable and things that we can actively do when we change roadway behaviors and infrastructure. The next slide is our safety priority network. So a safety priority network identifies segments with the highest concentration of fatal and serious injury crashes on the network. Our safety priority network, maybe you've heard of in other places, and in Vision Zero plans, it's commonly referred to as a high injury network, or an HIN. SANDAG at the regional MPO level is calling theirs a safety focus network. So there are many names that this sort of analysis is typically under, but it's looking at historic crash data and trying to understand where the highest concentration of these crashes are happening. The analysis assigns weights to fatal and serious injury crashes, but we also look at systemic or proactive approaches and features to look at where vulnerable road users are, such as beach access points, schools, so we can think preventatively or approach proactively to prevent crashes. And this intent is really to visualize priority segments for safety improvements. 100% of the reported fatal and serious injury crashes were on just 29.8 miles of the city's roadway. And so in comparison, the city's center lane miles is about 120 center lane miles. So this is just 15% of the network that's making up all of the fatal and serious injury crashes. And this allows you to sort of understand where we can make the most meaningful impact. So in addition to looking reactively at the crash data, we also want to understand what are the characteristics that are leading to these crashes, specifically the fatal and serious injury crashes. So this is systemic safety. Systemic safety recognizes that transportation safety issues are interconnected. Instead of just addressing individual crashes or places where high number of crashes tend to happen in isolation, which can change from year to year depending on the study, we include this systemic approach to analyze patterns in the network. And this allows us to identify other systemic issues. So here's a list of our initial contextual factors that are influencing crash likelihood and crash severity. So the first is posted speed, 35 mile an hour and 50 miles an hour, which is the maximum in the city of Encinitas, accounts for 86% of the fatal and serious injury crashes. So we see that speed has a high correlation with the severity of crashes. The next two are the place in the roadway and the type of roadway. So an intersection on a local collector, 28% of all fatal and serious injury crashes in the study period happened on the local collectors. And local collectors, for just everyone's sake, are defined as streets that are designed to gather or collect traffic from local roads or residential areas or smaller streets and channel them to the larger arterials. So this is like a neighborhood street that connects to larger roads and mixed-use zoning. The next is intersections on arterials, which account for just a little bit less, but still 24% of the fatal and serious injury crashes. And again, for everyone's sake, arterials are those moving large volumes of traffic, typically across neighborhoods, connecting to other cities, and these are really the backbone of our transportation system. And then lastly, we included land use, commercial. So land use accounts for 76% of fatal and serious injury crashes. And this is telling because commercial areas are where you tend to see higher concentration of pedestrian use, mixing of different modes. And so we see that a lot of fatal and serious injury crashes are happening in these areas. And so next, outreach and engagement. So back in May, we attended Ciclovia and hosted a booth to ask residents which safety improvements they'd like to see in their communities. Improvements were sort of grouped in three categories. You can see the image of the pillars there. There's the pedestrian one in purple, and the green is the bike. And so we had bike, vehicle, and pedestrian improvements, and then an add your own, where people could sort of write on a sticker and tell us what they would like to see in terms of safety improvements. The highest ranking improvements of all the folks that we spoke to included off-street bike paths, protected bike paths, roundabouts, and shorter, more visible crossings, and lastly, better traffic enforcement. We then looked at what was included in the add your own statement. An overwhelming majority asked for trails for bikes, followed by better bike parking, lower vehicle speed, and more frequent transit. And for the upcoming outreach, today's meeting here with the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, we have a meeting with Bike Walk Encinitas scheduled for the end of the month. And then we'll be back here for you all in early 2025, and then hopefully to City Council for an adoption. So just wanted to highlight, lastly, some next steps, what to expect in between now and the next time we see you all again. I mentioned we have the Encinitas Bike Walk meeting later this month, followed by an equity analysis. So this is where we want to explore if certain groups have a higher concentration of crashes, as well as certain areas in the city. We'll then compile a priority location list. So in addition to having those priority segments that we've already identified, we'll institute another prioritization process and develop a sort of action plan or implementation strategies for the city to help them meet their Vision Zero goals. We'll then develop a draft and final plan and present to the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission and Council. And with that, I will open for questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very informative. Do any of my commissioners have questions or comments? Commissioner Wong?
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for your presentation. It's very informative, and now it looks like you did a lot of analysis on the report, so took a lot of work. I understand that.
Thank you.
So I did have a few comments and questions. I'll start with a simple one. So first of all, broadside, I never thought of that as front to front. T-bone doesn't mean front to front. It means a car hitting the side of another car. And I believe that's common. But you said front to front. I don't think that's quite right.
It's sort of, so I think we're saying the same thing, but it's sort of like a vehicle. So if I'm one vehicle here, another vehicle typically hits sort of the front part of a car, but not, this is like a head-on. So it's sort of here.
Okay, I'm not going to belabor that point. So it's
Okay.
a fact. So, and I'm sure you understand what it is. So I'm a little more concerned about using crash data to assess the safety of a roadway, because that assumes that the sample population is representative of the people who want to go on that road. And that's not true, because if a road is dangerous, for instance, I just won't go on it. I may like to go on it, but I won't go on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I live near Santa Fe Drive, for instance, but I don't consider it very safe. So I take a longer route. But I would like to go on Santa Fe, but I won't be an accident on Santa Fe. So I think that's a false way of judging the safety of a road using crash data. And I wish you'd correct that. I hope you do, because I mean, I don't know exactly how to do it, because how do you judge the safety if people don't ride on it?
Yeah.
They use it. But I don't think it's a valid way of judging safety.
Sure. Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I think as transportation planners, we use the data that's available to us. There are instances where cities can ask residents where they would like to go versus where they feel safe to go. That's sort of an additional subset that could be explored at a later date. I didn't make up the analysis. I hope that doesn't come off across that way. This is best practices, sort of by national guidance to use sort of reactive crash data. And so we use crash data to sort of understand where issues are, because I think even though you will not take that as a specific road that you want to travel in, there are people that do. And if those people experience unsafe conditions, it will hopefully show up in the data. We also look at more than just reactive crash data. I mentioned some of the more systemic safety data that we look at. So we included parks, we included schools, we included recreation centers, beach access points, and that allows us to give weight to some of the what other places that are on those particular segments. So a segment that experienced a fatal and serious injury crash will come up with a higher score in our analysis, but we don't want to just rely on crash data. As you mentioned, it's reactive, it doesn't tell the whole story. So that's when we combine our systemic factors, the things that are like points of interest or destinations that try to account for places where we expect to see people who walk or bike, or should expect to see people who walk or bike in those places. So we try to accommodate sort of that theory.
It actually didn't sound like that way in your report, but it really should be normalized by the number of desired users rather than using the actual users. And I don't consider that best practice. I think it should be contested. But it's not my department, it's yours.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I hope you do contest that, because it's not correct. And you understand why. I mean, right. said you understand why.
Right, which is why we've, kind of moved forward with a new process of adding systemic variables to account for additional kind of nuances in a city's roadway network.
Okay. Also, along the same lines is using speed limits to categorize your accidents and saying that most accidents occur on roads with higher speed limits, 35 to 50. I think you should be actually using actual speeds rather than speed limits because, as some of our public speakers have said, speed limits are kind of meaningless. Many people don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
So it really is speed, such as by the roundabout. The estimated speed was a lot faster than the posted speed.
Sure.
And that's true on most roads. I think on most roads, the speed limit is the minimum speed people drive, and very rarely do people drive under it. So just try driving the speed limit sometime, and you'll see how many people get mad at you back up behind you. So
Yeah.
I don't think the posted speed limit is valid for sorting.
Yeah. Again, using data that's available to us, the city manages their engineering and traffic's speed data. However, we didn't include this analysis, but certainly can consider what's available. Not every city, and Matt or Abe, feel free to jump in, manages posted or does speed surveys on every single city. So I don't know what data is available. However, that could be considered in a future analysis. Because I agree with you. I know
Okay,
that.
and I'm sure you understand, speed limits are constrained by that 85% rule.
Yeah.
And Abe and his staff have had to jump through hoops to try and lower speed limits. Like on El Camino Real, it's 50 miles an hour, and it's still too fast, as one of our speakers said.
Yep.
But it is really impossible to change that because of speed limits. Speed surveys,
Right.
having to do the speed survey.
Yeah.
The other part is, I don't remember who said it, but someone said if you design a road like a freeway, people would drive like a freeway. And that's what El Camino is right now. It really is a very wide road with 6 lanes, very wide median. You understand what it is.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it were a 2-lane road or narrower, then people may be inclined to drive slower, but they won't. Just putting up a sign won't do it.
I agree with that sentiment. And I will commend the city for moving forward with the new changes from the California MUTCD, which allows for lowering speed limits. I think we used to be stuck to just 85th percentile. However, now we have a lot
Understand.
more criteria to evaluate, such as bike ped generators, high concentration of crashes, and I believe the
Schools.
city is exploring schools. Exactly.
Yes,
So
okay.
there's a lot more flexibility. However, totally agree with you. Changing a posted sign will get a good amount of the population to abide, but not everyone. And the excessive speeders are really the primary issue that the roadway needs to be redesigned
I'm not sure
for.
how many people you wouldn't say good amount. I'm not sure that'd happen because people drive the same rate other speeds people do. So anyway, I don't want to have a long discussion on this. I want to thank Abe
can
and the
connect
staff
offline, too.
for going through. I'm going through hoops to jump to do AB 43, but that's only 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour here and there.
Yeah.
And I don't see too many people driving slower now, even with 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for presentations.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for your comments. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Thiele?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. There's a lot of detail in there. I just have a general question. Commissioner Wong was speaking of El Camino Real. Would you consider that, or how would you characterize that road? Is it arterial or El Camino Real?
Yeah, I believe it's an arterial.
Correct. It's listed as a prime arterial in our circulation element.
Excellent. And I noticed there was a percentage, KSI percentage of speeding. Is that, and you said that's 24%, and that's the highest.
Yeah, I'll scroll back
I'm
to
the-
that. Yeah. It's 86%. And then the arterials were 24. Yeah.
Johnson?
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for sifting through such data. It's kind of a fuzzy set of data, but if you can get valid conclusions from sifting it and sorting it, thank you very much. That's a difficult task.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's why community outreach is great, because you can use the data to then communicate with the public, which we intend to do with Bike Walk at the end of this month, to really validate the findings and try to uncover some of those other nuances that's not present in the data.
A couple questions. One is, it looks like you went back to 2018. Why did you choose 2018?
So the best practices for this kind of analysis includes looking at a 5-year sample, and the 5-year sample of final data that we could get was 2018 to 2022. I mentioned this earlier, but 2023 data is still provisional from the state, meaning that there are a lot of reports that haven't been finalized, and so the data, it has a lot of null values, meaning there has a crash, but we don't know what city it's assigned to, we don't know really the roadway location, and so we typically try to use final data in that analysis.
I was going to ask if we could add provisional with the asterisks. Given the way the commission works and even the way the council works, not having the most recent data, with the idea that what we can impact is generally what happens right now is hard. So are we able to add provisional data?
Yeah, so what we were sort of scoped to do was align with SANDAG's effort, and so that 5-year data was 2018 to 2022. However, very much want to take 2023 into consideration, so I mentioned that we're going to move forward with a prioritization approach where we're going to go back to the data. Now that we have those kind of smoothed segments, we know what our safety priority network is, and then we're going to incorporate the fatal and serious injury crashes that happened in 2023 to account for the most recent fatal and serious injury crashes that happened last year, and account for some of the roadway improvements that have happened. I will say, though, that that's not final, so there are some discrepancies in the data, and so it's not perfect, but we wanted to use it at a place where it starts to really develop projects and make sure that that data is accounted for.
Cool, that would be great. And another request would be, can we add the traffic citation data alongside the collision data so we can see what the citation data looks like?
Yeah, and by citation data, what do you mean by
Police
that?
enforcement. So like one of the big requests from the community, of course, is traffic enforcement. And I think not in the SWITR's database, but I think we could add police citation data alongside crash data.
So like the cities managed, or I guess the counties managed data?
Yeah.
Okay, because all of these are officer reported citation, Oh, citation, I'm sorry. Yeah, certainly something we could explore. Yeah,
I would love
I
to
don't
look at
know
that,
how the
okay.
relationship with county and citation data that's available, but something we could explore. Sorry, I misunderstood you at the beginning.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it would be really great to be able to look alongside. And then what you did here on slide 17 is great. I would love to see it throughout the presentation, is you have the ends here, so you have the total numbers against it.
Yeah.
In the rest of the presentation, there's not a lot of, you kind of lose sense of, well, how many would that be? But if we can keep the end value next to the percentages, that'd be really helpful.
Sure. Yeah, I'll note that for when we come back.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Yeah, thank you. Curious with that timeline and kind of COVID being the prime time of those years, is there any information on just total volume of traffic? Yeah, the assumption is people didn't, obviously 2020 lockdown. And I'm not sure how much or if at all that would have an effect on any of this data, but kind of the numerator on all of this. And if that's gone down, I'm just curious if that's an opportunity to see how much traffic has this roadway seen over those years? And did it go down during COVID? And is it coming back? So are these numbers kind of in sync with overall traffic volumes? Would be helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And I think at least when we get to the when we have a prioritized list, we will kind of come up with concepts for 2 of those top priority projects. And that's when we'll really visualize what's happening exactly at this location. I think that's a great opportunity for us to include average annual daily travel. But I think in terms of the overall years, we'd probably have to think critically about how we look at that on like an annual basis citywide, but happy to explore that, yeah.
Okay, probably, it would be a rough estimate, but just anything to kind of give any indication of that. And then just my other question is about the timeline, and it says, you'll come back into us as well as City Council early 2025. Will our presentation be a draft version? Will we be able to offer any other further insights or ideas? And then what is that time gap from that presentation to the final to the City Council?
Yeah, we would expect this to come back to this commission early 2025, and yeah, there would be approximately a month before it gets finalized to go to council for consideration and adoption. So there would be some opportunity for some, further work at that point. But between now and the next time this comes back to this commission, like Angelica said, this will go to the Bike Walk Encinitas group, and that's happening in a couple of weeks, and then it's still some months before it comes back to the commission. So there'll be plenty of work done in between that time. But yeah, additional opportunity after the next presentation.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, I have a few questions. Again, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate you incorporating the data, and I like Commissioner Gross's suggestion to try to look at maybe, speeding data. I think that's what he was trying to get at, tickets. I have a few questions about next steps and basically how you're doing the outreach so that it's equitable to all partners in the city, because it sounds to me like both of the two outreaches that you're doing, one was at a bicycle event, and Encinitas Bike Walk is very heavy bike. So this plan is addressing all forms of mobility, right? We need to look at walking and trails and for every community member. So my question is, are you giving all citizens the option to comment, or do they have to just be at Cyclovia and part of Encinitas Bike Watch? So that was my first question.
Sure. Yeah. So we only included 2 outreach activities as part of this. One was sort of meant to be general stakeholders, so sort of an already hosted event, meeting people where they already are. And then the second event was sort of a organized group trying to speak to them. And so we, right now, are only scoped for those 2. However, I think we'd be amenable to hearing other ideas. And I will pass it to Nick, but I did just want to offer that Sandag is developing the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan concurrently, and they collected 3,000 survey data points across the region. Many of them came from the city of Encinitas. So we've been talking to them about using that data since your residents have already shared where their issues are. We haven't been able to get that data yet. However, we're trying to.
Okay, and then what exactly are you doing with this data? Are you using this data to create your priority list of areas? So I think that's where a little bit of my anxiety comes in, because if you're just using a few stakeholders to say whatever they are asking for, and then you're also looking at the crash data, I think it goes back to Commissioner Wong's comments of, you will not get people using roadways that are not safe. And so I really would ask that maybe as you are making your priority list, you also look at the roadways that you have outlined on there. Can you please do an overlay of which ones actually already have sidewalks and bike lanes? Which ones have only sharrows? Which ones have not a single sidewalk on either side or bike lane? And use that as part of your priority list, because it does seem to me that certain areas of the city keep getting improved and improved and improved, and other areas are overlooked. And we need to look and see what infrastructure already exists before we start adding more and making a priority list. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, and I'll just clarify to your first question. I think I thought you meant, what are we doing in this whole project? So we are developing a priority list, but we really are doing a data-driven approach. And so we aren't taking the community input, as you mentioned, is from a very subset of the population. It's really hard to speak to every resident in the community,
Definitely.
although we wish we did.
Yes.
So prioritized list will be based on the data only. I think where we see value, or at least going to Bike Walk Encinitas, is really on the action plan. So the things that the city is going to do, or implementation strategies to actually help reach their goal. And so asking them about what are some things that they've seen in other cities that they'd like to see here, what are some things that they've heard in the news or research, and things that are actually sort of proven and effective at helping cities reach Vision Zero goals. There are many jurisdictions in the nation, or I shouldn't say many. There are jurisdictions in the nation that are being successful at reaching their Vision Zero goals. And we want to learn from them and have a conversation about what strategies that are being implemented elsewhere are context sensitive and something that we want to see in Encinitas.
Okay, perfect. And maybe I need some clarification here. I was under the impression that you are also going to recommend certain, like you said, you were going to whittle down the map to, and what does that mean when you say that? You're going to whittle down the map to areas that need, like, bike lanes, sidewalks? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what countermeasures will be identified at this time. So right now we have 37 unique segments on our safety priority map. And we want a way to add some additional weight and priority to that list. We do recognize that the city has many projects going on already, and there are going to be instances where one of those segments already has a new project installed on it, or there's a project in design seeking funding for construction. So we likely will take that prioritized list, then assess based on the city's existing projects, and from there just take the top 2 highest scoring projects and develop concepts for those areas. And the engineering solutions that will be recommended will be based on FHWA research, what are proven safety countermeasures, and have efficacy of reducing the exact type of crashes that we're seeing on those segments.
Okay, fabulous. And I guess then my request would be, as part of the data-driven approach, can you look at those 29 roadways and include, as part of your data, like which of those roads have sidewalks, which of them have bike lanes, protected bike lanes, sharrows, and use that as part of your data-driven approach when you're looking at the plan?
Yeah, happy
Okay.
to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, because I would be interested in seeing which ones of, where we have those accidents and deaths where there haven't been sidewalks or there haven't been bike lanes, protected
Yeah,
bike lanes.
we're happy to include that. We'll develop cut sheets, so I think that's perfectly reasonable to include what the existing facilities are on that roadway.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you very much. Any other commissioners have any other questions? No. Okay. Ms. Mobility Manager Buck, did you want to finish up? I would like to thank you so much for coming this evening. It was much appreciated. Ms. Roca, did I say that correctly?
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks.
And then Commissioner
Yeah,
Buck.
thank you, Angelica, for the presentation. This is something that we're thrilled to be working on. We look forward to bringing this back to the commission in this winter. That's pretty much it for updates from the mobility area. Just want to note that the Oktoberfest event that happened in Encinitas, the city hosted a bike valet there that was totally awesome. We had so many users of that, so that was a goal to start to implement that and for the city to take a role in hosting that at large-scale community events. Really happy that we did that. Additionally, bike education for students in Encinitas has been going on at the elementary school level, with all schools having received their assemblies this school year, and then planning for education in the second half of the year, whether in the form of a bike rodeo or a community bike ride to further educate. Additionally, at the high school level, the schools have scheduled out their bike education. Excited that San Diego Academy, all 3 schools in our district that are in Encinitas have available to them on bike education hosted at San Diego Academy for the kind of the bulk of the school year. So a lot of classes being offered, and additionally webinars and assemblies on the calendar as well. So that's an addition for this school year. So really pleased that we have education available to elementary, middle, and high school youth in Encinitas as a part of the MOU program with our school districts. So that's some things that are going on. We'll continue work on the CSAP project. Again, looking forward to bringing that back this winter. And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. So that was I think, the end of 6A. Now I think we're on to 6B. Is that correct? So I think next up are updates on mobility element draft. And I think we have our senior mobility planner. Thank you for being here tonight. Do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, I do. 1 second. Let me bring it up.
Would you like us to jump ahead to 6C while you guys get set up? Okay, I'm thinking we should jump ahead to 6C and let you guys get yourself set up, if that's okay, Amanda? Can we go ahead? So I think,
We cannot play anything.
oh,
We cannot open any files.
we can't open any files. Okay, so
Move to the next item, we cannot open.
we can't open anything. Okay, well, this is a snafu. We'll just hang tight then, wait for IT to get here. Yes, we can. I just don't, I think because of the public part of the meeting, I think it won't show up on the live stream, is my thought.
I wish I had my IT here this quick. I guess you guys have the power. Mine is my wife.
All right, apologies for those technical difficulties. Good evening, Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. I'm Evan Jednak, Senior Mobility Planner, here tonight to present item 6B, the Mobility Element Update. So I presented an introduction on this project to the Commission in 2021 and also a status update last year. So this background may sound familiar to some of you, but here's a refresher. The mobility element, it's a high-level policy document which was part of the city's general plan. It has never undergone a comprehensive update since it was created in 1989. So amongst other things, this project is about modernizing this document to align with current city values, state laws, and industry trends. Shown here are a couple of the main project objectives. First is to improve the safety, connectivity, accessibility, and comfort of all multimodal corridors to maximize the number of trips made by foot, bicycle, transit, micromobility, and really anything other than single occupancy vehicles. Another key objective is to reduce vehicle speeds, increase driver attention, protect vulnerable users on local streets, and reduce overall vehicle miles traveled. So we've conducted several community outreach events over the past couple years of this project, including 2 formal workshops and an environmental scoping meeting, as well as various informal outreach at local events such as the Farmers Market, EcoFest, and Ciclovia. So this overview slide illustrates the different parts of the mobility element and how they all work together. It's based on a tiered hierarchy of documents, with the top level being the actual element. So as mentioned, the element itself provides high-level goals and policies. It also defines a road classification network. While the element is at the top of the hierarchy, it differs down to the mobility analysis guidelines, or MAGs as we're calling them, for detailed technical standards. An example of this, many of the policies will make direct reference to the MAGs instead of noting specific metrics or numbers in the policies themselves. The MAGs are then split up into 2 main parts, the VMT guidelines and the LMA guidelines, which I'll cover in a later slide. The MAGs also includes the technical information such as tables of street classifications, number of lanes, and median types, along with sample street cross-sections, etc. So the MAGs are the middle tier, which then differs down to adopted multimodal plans and standards for even further guidance. Examples of such plans include the Active Transportation Plan, or ATP, the Railroad Corridor Cross Connect Plan, Local Roadway Safety Plan, Public Road Standards. The Comprehensive Safety Action Plan that we just heard about would be one of these plans as well. You'll see in the text along the left side here, the top 2 tiers are within the scope of this project, while the 3rd tier multimodal plans and standards are separate efforts that already exist or the effort is underway to create those plans. So one of the first steps in developing the element was to identify and establish our existing and planned citywide multimodal network, which includes pedestrian, bicycle, micromobility, public transit, vehicle circulation, and freight facility networks. The figures on this slide depict our existing and planned pedestrian and bicycle networks. The pedestrian network shown on the left is split into sidewalks and trails, and the bike network on the right is split into the 4 classes of bicycle facilities. Existing improvements are shown here with dashed lines, while planned improvements from the Active Transportation Plan are shown as solid lines. So these are just a couple of examples of figures from the element. There are also figures showing bus and rail lines, speed limits, public parking lots, and truck routes. Establishing this multimodal network was a crucial first step in setting the context for developing the element goals and policies. In addition to updating the multimodal network, the element updates the street typologies for all classified streets within the city. Shown on the left here is a table describing the different street types, and shown on the right is a citywide map of the street type locations. And the street types are described as follows. So prime and major connectors are the most heavily traveled type and are meant to connect neighborhoods and destinations across longer distances, typically beyond biking or walking distance. This is also alternatively called arterials, such as we heard in the last presentation. Collectors are the next level down, and these provide mobility in, out, and through neighborhoods and destinations. Next are residential neighborways, which provide local access to residential streets. These are often within walksheds of key destinations like beaches or parks. and then comes unclassified local streets, which are the least heavily traveled and provide direct access to individual residences. At the bottom of this table are special designation corridors, which includes portions of Highway 101 and the El Camino Real corridor. So it's important to note that the classification of streets was done using the multimodal traffic modeling data output that was prepared by our consultant as part of the element update. The results of the traffic model help determine which typology each street was assigned, ensuring that this is a data-driven policy document. Having a street be classified makes it more likely for the city to obtain grants in order to fund construction of multimodal improvements along that street. Once we completed the multimodal network and street classification portions, we were able to focus on developing the goals and policies, which are the most substantive part of the mobility element. Shown here is a summary of the element goals. Goals are the highest level of policy guidance, and for each there are several policies in the element on how to meet that goal. Staff utilized public feedback from various outreach events, coupled with the multimodal traffic data, consultant expertise, and interdepartmental city review to develop and revise this goal and policy language. The draft goals are shown here. I won't read through them all now, but the topics include mobility system purpose and guiding principles, multimodal options, vehicle miles traveled and mode share, system connectivity, system safety, and environmental and community impacts. And again, each goal has several related policies to support it in the full element. So that broadly covers the mobility element. Now I'll touch on the MAGs, which is a second tier implementation document circled in red when we're looking back at this hierarchy chart. So as mentioned earlier, the MAGs is comprised of two main parts, the VMT guidelines and the LMA guidelines. Vehicle miles traveled, or VMT guidelines, were adopted by City Council on November 8th, 2023. Since this was a state law requirement and we had to become compliant as soon as possible, we were already behind. We moved for approval ahead of the rest of the mobility element for that document. As some of you may already know, VMT replaced level of service, which is essentially a measure of traffic congestion for CEQA purposes. So now instead of measuring environmental impact based on how congested the roads are, we measure it based on how many vehicle miles are being traveled. The VMT guidelines identifies analysis methods, establishes VMT thresholds for CEQA transportation impacts, and identifies potential mitigation strategies. And the adopted VMT guidelines are linked on this slide. The local mobility analysis, or LMA guidelines, is the other main part of the MAGs. LMA studies evaluate the effects of a proposed development project on the safety and operation of multimodal network users, which includes conducting a level of service analysis for vehicles and also what is called a level of comfort analysis for bicycles, pedestrians, and transit users. The LMA guidelines set screening criteria and thresholds to determine when an LMA study is required, which will assess the potential need for off-site improvements for development projects. So for example, these guidelines might require that a large housing development has to fill in any sidewalk gaps within a quarter mile of the project or build a new bike lane within 1 mile of the project if such bike and pedestrian improvements are planned for in the ATP or other implementation documents. This slide shows a couple examples of the technical detail that the MAGs provides to supplement the high-level goals and policies in the element. So every classified street is documented in tabular form in the MAGs with its classification, vehicular function, future lane count, and future median type noted. Additionally, sample cross-sections are provided for the 23 different street subtypes. It's important to note that these cross-sections aren't meant to be prescriptive. Rather, there's simply a graphical depiction of what a preferred streetscape could look like for each subtype, given an adequate right-of-way width. They can be thought of as aspirational cross-sections. We recently hit a big project milestone. The draft environmental impact report for the project was released for its 45-day public review and comment period, which began on September 6th and it ends on October 21st. Linked on this slide is the legal notice availability for the draft EIR and a link to the full project review materials, including the MAGs and all technical appendices. To summarize the EIR, there were no significant impacts identified. This is due to the fact that the mobility element's focus is on non-vehicular modes. It doesn't call for expanding any road to accommodate vehicles. All goals and policies encourage alternate modes of travel and a shift away from single occupancy vehicles. As such, no project mitigation measures are required. So this item tonight, it's an informational item for the commission, but I encourage all commissioners and any members of the public to review the full EIR and project materials at the link shown here and submit any comments to me before October 21st. To conclude, shown here is the remaining project schedule. So as mentioned, the EIR public review and comment period is currently underway. Tonight's presentation is the second bullet, and the EIR public review period ends on October 21st. We are tentatively targeting November for the Planning Commission and December for City Council hearings, barring any unforeseen circumstances. And once City Council adopts a document, it'll then be submitted to the Coastal Commission for their review and approval. And this concludes tonight's presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do any commissioners have questions? Commissioner Wong?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Evan, for your presentation. It looks like you put a lot of work into it, and I'm glad to hear that LOS is going away in favor of VMT. I assume that's VMT reduction, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you don't want to increase VMT, you want to reduce it, right? So,
Right, yeah, everything we're doing with this is to reduce VMT, correct.
okay, I'm glad you clarified that. So I was going through some of the goals and the mobility element, and they sound great. I love it. I'd love to live in a city like that, but they sound more like just words and kind of aspirational. It's sort of a fantasy type thing. I'd like to see more implementation rather than just having words as goals. And I have a few examples, and just about every goal I have questions on, but picking out a few, like 3.1, time competitive mobility options. So at every intersection, it's called, priority is given to cars, entirely cars. I mean, pedestrians, they have to press the beg button and then wait 1 or 2 minutes. Bikes are completely ignored, so the loop detection does not detect bikes. And even at the last meeting, October 9th, even the mayor complained about that. And I've been complaining that about 10 years since Catherine was on the Traffic Commission. So that was 2014 or so. So I don't see very much effort being put towards time competitive mobility. Same thing with public transit. No one takes public transit because it is really slow. I mean, I wanted to go down to University City the other day, and taking public transit would have taken 3 hours. So that's really not a good alternative. B-Cycle was a nice idea, but they went out of business. They didn't get enough support. So things like complete streets, this is 4.1, multimodal complete streets design standards. So mobility projects incorporating are supposed to have multi-use paths, lanes, signals, loop detectors, parking, and other infrastructure and operational accommodations for other means of transportation. So I've had a resident complain about lack of bike parking. So on 2nd Street, there's a new French bakery, I think, is next to the yoga studio. Bikers love going to that French bakery, but there's no place to park the bikes. So they're leaning them against the yoga studio. And the yoga studio operator was complaining about that, but there's no place to put their bikes. And we devote acres and acres to car parking, and 1 car space would hold 10 bikes. So why aren't there more bike spaces? So that's another example. 4.5, equity among all modes of travel. So again, I mentioned beg buttons for pedestrians, because cars are given ultimate priority at every intersection. Why aren't there some intersections the other way around, where pedestrians have priority, the default pedestrians? The walk signal should be on all the time, and then when a car comes, maybe it'll start changing, but they'll have to wait a minute or two, just like pedestrians have to wait for the walk signal. Make the cars wait a minute or two, so the pedestrians and bikes can clear the intersection. You understand what I'm saying? That would be where bikes and pedestrians actually have priority, according to what cars have now. But it's so normalized, the cars are priority, that is ignored. Bikes and pedestrians are ignored routinely. So that's why I'm saying that, yes, I love your mobility element, but it's so aspirational now, not seeing much implementation, it's just words so far. So I don't mean to put down your report, because I know you put a lot of work in it, and it shows. And it's not your fault that things aren't changing very quickly. But this is just a comment. I don't know what we can do about it.
Yeah, well, I can definitely speak to that. You know, it may just seem like rhetoric or flowery language, but I mean, it's the general plan is the highest, you know, legal document for guiding development in the city. And our current circulation element is from 1989. So, I mean, you look at that language and it's not modern like this, you know, it's not encouraging bikes and pedestrians over vehicles. So, I mean, this is the first step to changing that from a planning perspective. I mean, once this is adopted, now we have a mobility element with current rhetoric that is now law of the city for guiding development. So, I mean, the council and other commissions, decision makers are now, you know, required to follow this language. You know, the language, it becomes quite powerful in that way. So, you know, as shown in these slides here, this is the high level policy document. So it's not going to be implementing, you know, individual improvements with this document. You know, we acknowledge that. It is of the highest level planning document. But the idea is that this language filters down into the mobility analysis guidelines and then eventually into the implementation plans, like the plan we heard earlier tonight. And, you know, that starts spurring change. And so I want to thank you for your past comments on, you know, things like bike loop signal detectors, bike boxes, things like that. We did try to include some of those items called out specifically. Item 4.3 does say encourage features such as bicycle loop signal detectors, cross bikes, bike boxes. So, I mean, we're trying to be as specific as possible with these goals, you know, so that future decision makers can read this and say, oh, well, it's in our general plan, you know, that's the highest level. We need to do this. So hope that helps.
Okay, I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't want to sound like I'm coming down on you or your element, you know, because I understand it is high level policy document, not implementation plan. The MAP should be close to the implementation plan, correct? Mm-hmm. And hopefully that will be changed to reflect your updated mobility element. So I thank you for the changes you've made. As you said, now recognize other modes of transportation besides cars. So it's a good step in the right direction. So thank you for that. I really didn't mean to come down hard on you or anything like that. So
it's fine.
All right.
No offense taken.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners? Commissioner Trott?
Yes. So I was just, you know, looking through the, well, first of all, the EIR, and, you know, interestingly enough, it says that the city of Encinitas is pretty much built out. And I was like, yeah, no, that's very true. So then I was looking at B1 and, you know, the street classifications, and, you know, they keep it nice and simple. There's 4 different types. But then, you know, when I was reading through everything else, you know, I did see some references to like arterials. So I guess the one thing I'm just hoping and asking is that we can kind of keep this simple. You know, we have our streets, they're designated, you know, having several different types of collectors or connectors. Is that an opportunity? I know this is, you know, kind of big picture, but it did seem like there were a lot of different classifications. So is that something that's regulated, or is that something that can be tailored more to our city? Because we are a small city and we are built out, and those roadways are pretty much designated.
Yeah, so there's 4 street types. There's the connectors, as I mentioned in the slide before. There's the connectors.
I'm sorry, can you just pull that slide up?
Oh, yeah.
I apologize. I just think it would be easier for the rest of us to see. because I think she's talking about the chart on the left, which seems straightforward, and then the legend on the map on the right is very confusing. It does not seem to match up. I think, sorry to jump in here, but.
You got it.
Yeah, well, one second, let me get my bearings here. So yeah, there's four street types here. There's the connector, collector, residential, neighbor way, and then the local streets, which are unclassified. So all the streets in the city that are classified are actually broken down into 23 subtypes, as I mentioned earlier. So those are based on the number of lanes and the median type and the preferred right-of-way. So the MAGS includes, and actually it's in the element as well, it's a table that lists, all of these 23 types, and you can see that they're split into these 4 categories here. But for each one, it's a different, permutation of the number of lanes and the median type, basically. So, we have, for instance, I'm reading off the chart here. So SC4M, it's a suburban collector with 4 lanes and a raised median. There's SC4L, which is 4 lanes and a 2-way left-hand turn lane. SC2M, 2 lanes with a raised median. So in order to really classify each street, we had to break it down into the subtypes like that. And yes, on this figure here, there are more, categories shown in the legend than just these 4. It could perhaps be simplified, but we really wanted to capture all the nuances between the different types of streets.
Okay, I just have one more question.
I just want to jump in on this. I totally appreciate that there's many types, and that's great to know. It just might be helpful if on the table on the left, if you could just maybe underneath, like bullet what went under there, like of the 23 types, which 4 fit, on the one on the left, so
Here,
like
it might be helpful if I bring up the table from the element that we can look at quickly. I
mean, I don't know if it's necessary. I just think it
Okay.
was just confusing for us as we were looking at the thing on the left to try to figure out how they matched up with the streets on the right. That was all. So that would just be my one suggestion.
Okay, I do have one more question though.
Sorry.
So, and this kind of dovetails into Chair Hunsberger's comment. We have in B2, the appendix B2, you have like 5 pages of all the streets classified, so we have the data. It'd just really be nice if it was on a map. So either, like, I don't know if it's part of what you're doing with the mobility element, or if it's more something that the previous person, because you asked her to do that, so somebody ought to tell her it's right here, so she doesn't have to redo all that. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Thiele?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. I just have a simple question, and that is, why is 101 and El Camino Real a designated special, or it has a special designation? Is that because of the volume of traffic, the width of the road, the school, residential, commercial, all categories of?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely to do with, the volume of traffic, one. I mean, that they are the 2 most traveled arterials. But it's also to address the variability within the streets. Both El Camino Real and the 101 corridor, they have a lot of lanes, might go, obviously the 101 with the streetscape, going down to 1 lane, and then whereas it's 2 lanes in other parts. So it's really to address the fact that this corridor, they're the 2 most important corridors, you could argue, in the city, at least north-south. And they have, highly variable conditions that require extra planning attention.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah. Again, I take it that the intent is to remove entirely the existing circulation element from the general plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The circulation element would be updated and now called the mobility element.
Okay. With that in mind, there's some things in the current circulation element. For instance, level of service at an intersection that I don't see covered in here.
So, as mentioned, level of service went away as a CEQA metric. It was replaced with VMT. However, level of service can still be used, considered by cities in a non-CEQA way. And that is included in the MAGs. That's what the LMA, the local mobility analysis portion of the MAGs, so that it should have been included as part of the agenda. The MAGs includes the portion about the LMA, and it talks about LOS, and it says that the city does have an LOS standard of D or better. If you have an existing LOS that is D, then that has to be maintained. If it's already worse than D, it gives specific metrics. It can't make it basically more than 2% worse traffic congestion. So level of service is still covered in this project, just not from a CEQA standpoint.
Is it defined any place in the general plan?
Level of service defined?
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's designed or defined verbatim. It's certainly described in the general plan, yes, in this element and the supporting documents.
Okay. Next comment. I notice on page 37 a reference to automated vehicles, and I like that. Of course, we don't have any running in the city at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I had a comment on vehicles for hire, such as Uber and these automated vehicles. Are they something that the city can tax?
Can tax them? Was that the question?
Can the city tax things like Uber and automated vehicles, or do they already tax Uber, aside from sales tax?
I'm not familiar with how that would work from a tax standpoint.
Okay, this is a huge undertaking, putting this together. Thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Nope. Okay. Thank you so much for presenting this and all of your work. It's quite an undertaking and impressive. So we appreciate you taking this on and bringing it to us tonight. Thank you, and we
Absolutely.
look forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
it again in the future.
I appreciate the comments.
Okay, so next up is 6C, San Diego County Sheriff's Office report on enforcement in Encinitas. Thank you for being here tonight, Traffic Sergeant Collis. It's great to see you. We missed you last month. And what do you have for us tonight?
Good evening, Commissioners. We have one slide just with last month's collision data and citation data. I'm not seeing any trends as far as collisions in the short term right now. They're just kind of sporadic. The citations are up, however, so enforcement is up, and that's probably also due to our newest motor is fully trained and out there doing enforcement. So we're fully staffed as far as motors go, and then we have one vacancy with our cars, which we'll be filling in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So but that is all I have, and I'm open for any questions.
Commissioners?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Sheriff Collis. Were any of the bike or pedestrians, it seems high at 7 total, were any of those serious injuries?
There were some serious injuries, none that I can recall that were life-threatening, but some serious injuries. They were transported.
Thank you.
Just one. So thank
Yeah.
you, Sergeant. And I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Wong, I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on. I deferred to Commissioner Johnson without you being able to hear me.
Okay, this will be quick. So thank you for your map, as always. I was wondering if you could, like, color code the dots for the type of accidents, since you do have a list of them.
Yeah,
like
I
the ones
don't
in
do
G
this
class.
map. I have no clue how to do this map, but I can ask the analysts. if
Okay,
they can
understand it's
change
not
the
your
colors.
department, but pass it up the ladder, please. Thank you.
Will do.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes. Regarding the lowered speed limits, I've noticed a lot of slower traffic in town, and I like that. I'm wondering how the enforcement of that is going.
There is traffic is definitely slowed. I've noticed. I was actually our latest motor. I actually trained him for a week, so I was out there doing enforcement, and traffic is definitely slower than what it was. There is still speeding, people that don't recognize the speed, and obviously, and so there is probably a greater, how do I word this? We could, easier to write tickets right now because of the lowered speed limits, I guess would be the way I would put it. So there is some enforcement that needs to be done for sure. We need to target some different areas that has changed a little bit with the lower speeds. For example, South El Camino Real, that used to be an area where we wrote a lot of tickets. Recent time, not as much, but now with the difference in speed, that will probably change.
Yes, and is the 85th percentile rule still in effect, or can somebody get tabbed for being just 10 miles over the speed limit?
So the 85th percentile is how they set the actual speed. So after doing a survey, they set the speed for the roadway for the 85th percentile. So now with the AB 43, it used to be you could only go 4 miles per hour down with some reasoning, but now you can do that additional 5 miles per hour because of AB 43 without any additional reasoning in the safety corridors. So the 85th percentile doesn't necessarily equate to how we do enforcement. We can technically, we could write a citation for someone doing 1 mile per hour over the speed limit. We don't, but that, in theory, could be done. But we have to prove the unsafeness of the speed. So that's why we don't generally, there's a buffer there. So the 85th percentile doesn't have anything really to do with us enforcement as much as it has to do with just the setting of the actual speed limit.
Oh, okay. But the fact that the speed limit is now 5 miles an hour or lower means that the fines are likely to be a little larger. Is that correct?
The amount of speed over it depends. If they're going, however, greater than the speed limit, then that'll be a higher fine amount. But what I'm seeing is speeds are lower, so I'm not sure if there'd be higher fines necessarily.
Okay. I mentioned that because I enjoy leading a parade when I observe the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits.
You should try it on a motor.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Thiele?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sheriff Collis, good to see you. I as well like leading a parade on El Camino Real, and it is unbelievable. And I realize that it's difficult for everybody to go 30, but the entry and exit points, I mean, they're coming in and exiting pretty hot. I have noticed, I travel this road quite often, and I have noticed your motors out there more frequent than I have in the last few months. Thank you for that. When I'm going 30, everyone else is either behind me or they're going by. And I realize it's difficult. Everybody, except for me, if everybody is going, 45 or whatever the number is, if they get a green light coming south at Home Depot and Leucadia and Home Depot where Target is, and then another green coming in. I mean, they're for sure doing 50 or over. And then, as you know, when the road tilts down, going to the freeway, it's a lot. So I don't know. I know I mentioned last meeting if we could get some signage at least to warn people when they enter the corridor. Just say, hey, you know, it's 30. You know, flashing the movable signage. Just flash it at them again. But you know, I don't know if 30 seems reasonable to us. You know, and it'll help out, especially when the kids hop on to El Camino to, you know, cross many streets to get to school. It is helpful, but you know, people are going to have to slow down and realize that it's not 40, 45 is the standard. So I know that your comment is that people seem to be going slower, so that's good in general. But
Yeah, I think overall they are going slower. There's still a bit of a shift in thinking on our streets, and it's going to take enforcement, engineering, and so I think we're in the process. We're moving that sign. We're getting, you know, every time we get a complaint, I'm putting it somewhere here and there. We only have the one that the county actually bought, so it's also a data collection sign, so we can actually collect speed data. So we move it. Every week I'm putting it somewhere for a few days here and there. So whenever we get a complaint, we try to get it out there and see, you know, basically where the problem areas where we need to be.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Home Depot is definitely a spot that we recognize.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah, thank you. Sergeant, the map, I don't want to assume anything, but it doesn't show La Costa Boulevard. Is that the upper border of basically what this data would collect and include La Costa Boulevard?
So as part of the La Costa would be our area. So there's probably just not a collision on that, and that's why it's not included in the map.
Okay. And that's kind of the border with Encinitas and Carlsbad, right? Is that how you
Correct.
look at
We
that?
have all the way up to just the freeway.
La Costa, only west of the freeway is in Encinitas. The east of freeway, the whole La Costa belongs to Carlsbad. So we only own the small segment west of the freeway.
Okay.
So if a collision occurs on La Costa east of the freeway, then Carlsbad PD would be responsible for that.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. With the motors, when they're assigned to the city of Encinitas, is that the case when you talk about the dedicated motors you got and all that? I know we had the new one added. Do they literally stay within the city limits of Encinitas the entire time, or do they kind of come and go?
So they're assigned. We have 4 contract motors with the city of Encinitas. We have 2 others, one for Solana Beach, one for Del Mar. We do have training. We have days where they go to other cities to help with strike teams, and we call site days or what have you. But for the most part, yeah, they're dedicated to the city of Encinitas. We do have one motor that's on extended department-approved leave, so that's hopefully he'll be back soon. But of those 4, but right now we're fully staffed, but they are dedicated to the city for sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, I just have one quick question. Citation numbers were up. Do you know, I can't remember how many we had last month. I know I could have pulled that up. That was my one question, how many more tickets? And then, do you know what areas citations were focused on this month in the city? Did you target any certain areas, or was it all over?
We're kind of all over. Everyone's with the new speed limits. We're trying to see where the spots that need the most attention are. The guys are kind of all over the place day to day. It changes. I was on vacation for the past week, so but yeah, they're finding different spots that seem to be higher speeds now, that the different speeds, but it's really hard to say exactly. And as far as the tickets, I don't know what the last month
It was 305 last month.
Wow, that's a great improvement. Thank you. Hopefully that is going to really slow everybody down.
Hopefully.
It's 50% more. More than that, 100% more. Let me do my math quickly.
Don't ask me.
More than 100, yeah. Okay, fabulous. Any other commissioners have questions? Okay, then moving on to item number 7. 7A is design for turn restrictions at various intersections and design for installation of bollards at El Portal roundabout. Do we have a presentation?
Oh, yes, sure. I can walk the commission through the evaluation. So 2 separate items, but since they're both kind of related, we added them into one single report. They would both have to go to the City Council for design immunity if blessed by the commission. One item is turn restrictions at the intersection of Encinitas Boulevard and Camino de los Flores and Turner Avenue. It's basically an intersection, but the north and south have different names. So this intersection, we received concerns from the residents with regards to safety of turning movements. This is unsignalized intersection east of El Camino. And basically when the shopping center ends, this is the first intersection on the east side. As you can see, both sides on Encinitas Boulevard have turn pockets, relatively long, relatively wide intersections, 2 lanes of traffic, bike lanes and buffers on each side. And these serve a relatively large neighborhood on both north and south. When we evaluated this, our first idea was to add a traffic signal here due to the obviously volume of Encinitas Boulevard and the conflicting points that you can see here. When the warrants were analyzed, we found that it doesn't meet MUTCD warrants for a traffic signal. Our next idea was to implement some sort of a turn restriction that would address all these conflicts. These are basically all the conflict points when somebody wants to turn left out of Camino de los Flores or turn left out of Turner Avenue. And these vehicles, especially westbound, they can't see the traffic signal at El Camino when they're approaching west. So if they see a green, they might speed up a little to get to the green. And that can also make the situation a little bit more complicated with the vehicles coming out of Turner and Camino de los Flores with estimating the gap that they have to make their turns. Collision history showed a relatively high number of collisions. Nothing very serious in the past few years, but in the past 10, 15 years, there has been a high number of collisions continuously happening at this intersection. And when we evaluated, the majority of them were either broadside or rear end because of these kind of conflicts at the turning movements. So our suggestion was, after we collected data, we noticed that there is not really a very high number of left turners here. It's not a super inconvenience if the left turn is prohibited at these locations. As you can see, we have like 3 and 1 on the north side, and we have 15 and 6 on the south side during AM and PM peak. And both these side streets at the nearest east and west signals, they have U-turns allowed. So for like 10, 15 vehicles during a peak hour or like 5 for the north leg, to go to the nearest intersection and to make a safe U-turn, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So that's what we thought would be the perfect approach to eliminate left turns at these intersections. The left turns in the pockets would still stay because they have a good queuing, and they would only navigate 2 lanes of traffic turning left onto Turner or onto Camino de los Flores. But when they're exiting, they would have to navigate like 3 or 4 lanes of traffic to turn left. So the left turn pockets would stay, but if blessed by commission and then later by council, no left turn signs will be installed at the exits, and then vehicles would have to go to the nearest easterly or westerly intersection to make a U. Now I can continue, or I can stop here, Chair, answer questions about this, and then continue with the El Portal.
Yeah, let's do them one at a time. Thank you. I think that's a great idea. Okay, thank you for your presentation. I understand it. Any commissioners have questions? Keely?
I have a question. Thank you, Chair. Abe, thank you. I have a question. What's the speed limit in that?
Good point.
I
Is it 40?
Yeah, the reason I ask is I frequent that road a fair Encinitas on that east Encinitas, going both east and west on my bicycle, and the people coming up the hill. If I'm coming up at a rancho and I'm climbing up the hill, if they get the green light at the Encinitas.
45.
45, yeah. So that's quite quick. So the cars, coming west, if they get the green light, they see the green light at El Camino. They're gonna be gunning it. So I can imagine. So I think the no left turn sounds like a good solution to me.
And that, just to confirm, that neighborhood is to the east of where you just were with your little walking man, correct?
So this is LA Fitness here.
Yeah.
This is El Camino. This is the, there's another,
It's okay. I know.
yeah,
and
but
Trader
this is
Joe's-
the neighborhood basically that the Camino de las Flores serves. As you can see, there are a lot of houses here.
Right,
And then
yes.
the Turner is this one, right
Yes.
behind Trader Joe's and the Bank of America.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to see that on the map. Okay, Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah, define conflict point, these red dots. I don't quite understand, because you said the traffic incidences, crashes hasn't been an issue of recent years.
So conflict points are where a vehicle making a uncontrolled turn, basically without a signal or a stop sign, would have to navigate and prevent these potential collisions happen. So a vehicle on this blue line who is turning left would have to navigate this red, which is an eastbound vehicle not hitting him. The second red is this westbound left turn that may turn at any moment. So if you follow my mouse, this is the first dot. This is the second dot. Is it visible? I don't know how your LCD, is it clear? Yeah, and then when they go further up, now this is the third conflict, which might be this vehicle turning left, southbound left turn. This one is now being rear-ended or broadsided by the westbound vehicle on El Camino Real. And then this one is the right turn off of Turner Avenue. So all these conflict points are, which pretty much exists at every uncontrolled intersection. The difference here is now we have 5 lanes of traffic. If it's a simple 1 lane in each direction road, you have way less number of conflict points. I don't know the exact number, but it's exponentially higher. Where you have like a 2-lane road hitting another 2-lane road, your conflict points are very little. When you go 4-lane road versus another 4-lane road, your conflict points exponentially go up.
What was the catalyst for doing this whole assessment on this intersection?
A combination of, as I mentioned, the combination of this is one of the large intersections of the city that doesn't have any control. We have some similar in El Camino. We have El Camino and Cerro, which is kind of similar, wide road intersecting, but that's a T. This is more of a actual intersection. There aren't that many intersections like this in the city that do not have any kind of control, especially a roadway that's serving such a large neighborhood with like hundreds of vehicles coming out of it.
Right.
I really like to justify a signal, but you know, short of manipulating the numbers, we couldn't really justify and warrant it. So the collisions also, although there weren't like too many in, because there is a warrant for the number of collisions. If there are collisions in a 2-year window or a 3-year window, you can justify it. But we didn't have enough in that short window. But we did have quite a number of, I think it was an attachment to the staff report, maybe it is further down here, that there has been a good, not a good, I guess it's a bad choice of word, but yeah, since from the past 20 years, we've had a good, I guess 30, 40 collisions here, and these are all the ones that are right at the intersection due to these kind of maneuvers.
Yeah, large time frame.
Yeah.
So I guess aside from just trying to understand, so to the point about a light, right, I just recall on one of the other things we were looking at a few months ago was there was a proposed light on Sage Canyon and El Camino Real, probably for some similar type of, a lot of lanes, got to cross them and all that. Sage Canyon has hardly any homes compared to these neighborhoods, as does the other side, but yet that one seemed to be on cue for a light. This would seem far more warranted for a light than that intersection. So that's just my point about that one already being identified for a possible light and this one not.
So to clarify, that one was not warranted either. There was a traffic study by the developer with the warrants of MUTCD that showed it did not warrant. However, it was council's direction because of the fact that it's a new development and the neighborhood concerns and the residents of the city, please consider basically an override of the standards.
Yeah, I understood that, and it's not happening, right? Or at least not immediately, but.
I've heard the development has been either postponed or reapplying or something to that nature.
Again,
but the warrants did not meet for
Okay.
that either.
Right, yeah, and just intuitively or just common sense, it would seem like this is a proven busy intersection. That one's not yet, with a development not even built yet. This would warrant a light before that one. That's my one point. A no left turn for folks coming out of Camino de las Flores, meaning they'd have to go right. Now I'm thinking about that new development that's being built up by the 7-Eleven and traffic flow coming from that at some point sooner than later. And you're going to be forcing people to turn right and then to have to go up and make a U-turn to come back if they need to go where they're most, I'd guess, I don't know, 80, 90% of cars coming out of there are going to want to make a left turn because they're going to work, they're going to the freeway, they're going to Encinitas, El Camino Real. So to all of a sudden tell all of them they can no longer make a left turn just doesn't seem like it makes sense. If I lived in that neighborhood, I would fight it tooth and nail. I don't support it. It just doesn't seem to warrant it. I think it'll probably be the most disobeyed sign in the city, if not the county. So yeah, I get the point of it and everything. I would support a light more than anything, if anything at all. I actually own a business not too far from this area, and I can see how that would annoy people coming just into the business area where I am as well. Anybody needing to turn left for any reason there. So it just, my opinion, I don't know if this is anything we were going to vote on or not and supporting it or not, but I just don't think it makes sense to put no left turn signs here. It's very visible. It's a wide open viewed intersection. There's no visibility problems at all. So that's my.
I have a quick, I'm going to jump in here. Abe, two questions, tagging on what Commissioner Duncan has said. Number one, I think you pointed out already the data on how many residents are turning left here when you did a study. So what is that? Because you were saying you think most residents are going to want to go left, but Abe has the data, so what does the data show us?
Yeah, from what I see on the table, it seems like there was 15 turning left, 33 turning left.
Crossing the lanes of traffic?
Oh, no, 15 turning left out of Camino de las Flores during the AM peak, and then 6 turning left off of, at PM peak out of de las Flores.
Okay.
So
And
15 and 6, 20 during AM peak and PM peak combined.
I get that, but those numbers don't mean anything unless I know, like, is that 10% of the drivers? Is that how many out of how many? So 20 out of, what's the total? I can't read the chart up here, I'm sorry. The font is really tricky.
Yeah, the number, I don't think we have the total number in here, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I see it. Is it like thousands total?
No, that's the Encinitas Boulevard number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to decipher this.
Total is 44. I found it.
Yeah, that's for the PM peak.
So you've got 6 out of 44 going left and
Yeah, seems like that. And then 15 out of 57.
15 out of 57. Hold on. I need my calculator.
If 57, there's 15 going left, 9 going right. Where are the other 20-something? They're going nowhere, so the numbers don't quite make sense. I mean, to me, the total would be the 24. 15 are going left and
So I think the in and outs are reversed. The in is actually out and the out is in. So 33 vehicles get into Camino de las Flores and 24 go out. Out of the 24 that go out, 15 turn left and 9 turns right. And the 33 that go in, 30 are here, right turns off of Encinitas Boulevard, and 3 are left turns off of Encinitas Boulevard. So that's the 33 that's coming in, and then the 24 that goes out, 15 turns left and 9 turns right. And then similar with the PM peak.
So if I did my math right, that's 62% of the residents are turning left. Is that correct?
Well, correct, which makes sense considering this is pretty much the easterly end of the city, and then the majority would want to turn. But with regards to the inconvenience, we're talking about 15 vehicles per hour. I mean, it's
Right.
not like it.
Okay. I just wanted to have that data down. And they're not having to travel that far before making a U-turn. Can you, when we look at the accident data there, I think you said there were 34 historical accidents?
No, I just guess I didn't add them up, but based on the size of the table, I think it's about 10, 17, about 27. But again, this is a 20-year span, so it's not like we have 27 collisions in the past 3 years. But the fact that we have continuous, and these are collisions that were related to this kind of conflict. There were collisions that we didn't add to this table. These are all collisions that would be eliminated with a prohibited left turn. There were other collisions that we did not bring to this table.
Okay. Okay. That was just the clarification that I was looking for. And then the last thing, I was hoping you could maybe clarify with Commissioner Duncan what it means to, I don't know if he knows what it means to warrant a stoplight, like you have to meet certain criteria, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure you understood that it sounds like Abe really wanted a stoplight here, but it just didn't meet the criteria.
Yeah, we hired a consultant, we paid them. I wanted to see it be warranted, but unfortunately, it's out of my, as a city engineer, out of my authority to recommend a unwarranted. It's like a stop sign. City council can do it, but as a city engineer, we cannot recommend a unwarranted stop sign or unwarranted traffic signal, which was a similar case with Sage Canyon.
Last question. Much like any new stop sign or roundabout that goes in the neighborhood, if we do say, yes, we approve this, or we recommend it and we send it on to council, will the neighbors be alerted and will they get, I know that that's what it is with the stop sign, that, certain neighbors within an area are notified that the stop sign is going to come in or not come in. Would that also happen here or no?
So by Muni Code, turn prohibition does require an ordinance, which does have a public hearing. Now, how far we go with regards to notifying the residents for that public hearing, we can certainly consider notifying the neighborhood before it goes to council so they are aware of this turn prohibition be on the table.
Has anybody in this neighborhood reached out to you about this intersection or no?
That's how it initiated, correct.
Okay, so residents in the neighborhood reached out to you?
Yeah, but this neighborhood has like hundreds of residents, and I don't know how many contacted us, probably 1 or 2. It's not like half the neighborhood contacted us. So if the concern is the neighborhood being aware before it goes to council, if it's a recommendation of commission, we can certainly consider having some sort of a community meeting before even starting the council proceedings.
Okay, I think you've answered all my questions. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Wong?
Let me say I am completely in favor of this, and thank you for all your analysis, Abe. I think that if I lived on Camino de las Flores, I wouldn't be making a left turn there anyway. I'd rather go up the hill 1 block and cut over to Cerro so I can make a left turn with a traffic light. I mean, I wouldn't do the right turn U-turn because it's much simpler to go up the hill and do a left turn from Cerro. But a safe left turn is much better than risky left turn. So I'm completely in favor of what your analysis, Abe. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Chair, do you want to leave the motion, since this is one item, do you want to leave the motion to the end? Because if you make a motion, then we don't have anything for the second piece of the report.
Got it. We'll wait. Thank you.
Unless you want to agree on a motion and then put it on hold until we...
No. I just
can-
thought we were splitting the items, so I thought we needed to make a split motion.
I don't know, can we, Amanda, what do you think? We can... Maybe we can merge the motions later on together and make them one single, okay.
If we need
Yeah,
to.
go ahead.
Can I reopen this one real quick? I just have a question.
Sure.
So, Abe, how do you calculate? So let's just say someone turns right, then they need to turn. They need to get in the left lane, and then they need to make the U-turn, which then comes in conflict with that next intersection. So I'm just curious how you think about that from an engineering perspective. Now you've created a conflict at Cerro with the people that want to turn left at Cerro. So technically, because that car wouldn't be there otherwise, right? The car would have gone left. So the car is now going to create a change on Encinitas Boulevard from the right lane to the left lane to the next left lane. And then they're going to do the U, which technically means they're going to come into conflict with the traffic going west on Encinitas Boulevard and the traffic at Cerro.
So with regards
you've
to...
introduced you've introduced some new conflicts, which I'm just curious how you weigh that from an engineering perspective.
I mean, the level of conflict when somebody's changing a lane is basically lane change is pretty much happening all around. That's really not considered conflict.
Yeah,
but
sorry,
when
the
you
only
get to
reason
the
I bring that up
signal,
is because they're coming from a stop, right? So you're coming onto a street now that's 45 miles per hour. You're coming from 0. You've got to accelerate to 45 to make the left lane change. You know, that's not trivial, right? To go from 0 to 45.
I mean, if the distance was very short, if this pocket was like within 100, 150 feet of this Dallas Flores, I would have that concern. But the fact that this is, how far is it? About 700 feet. I'm not too worried about a vehicle having to do. This is basically a single lane change. They go from number 2 lane into number 1, and they reach the pocket and enter the pocket. And then at the intersection, it's a signalized intersection. So that's really not an additional
Okay. Sorry, I didn't
conflict
realize that
point.
was signalized.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll ask again. Oh, do you have a,
Well, just the one part about to request some kind of survey of the neighborhood, because maybe one person asked, but, 90% of the others would rather not. I mean, it's going to affect them tremendously. I would just like to see if there's a way we could do some kind of alert or inquiry to them before this is done. Because again, like I said, it's just I could just see it creating problems and people disobeying the sign, and then we got a whole other litany of issues.
Yeah, I mean, if it's commission's recommendation to do some sort of a community outreach before going to council, we can certainly consider that, yeah.
I think I would like to handle it like we do stop signs. So after it's, not here, but I think, isn't it, once it's on the council's?
So when it goes on to council, it gets published, obviously, ordinances, they go into, I don't know which newspaper, do you know, Amanda, which? Coast, yeah, we go to Coast News, and I don't know how many people really read that, but no letters do go out to the residents directly for like everybody, because but if we were going to have a community meeting, we would have to send out letters to everybody in the neighborhood. That's not standard practice but I mean, if we're sending it to everybody from Willow Spring to Encinitas Boulevard, west of Cerro, I can see about maybe 200, if I wanted to guess, somewhere there.
Okay, I think I'm in favor of just following your standard practice. That's me, but I'm not making a motion. That's just where I am.
I'd like to make that motion. A business is required to notify residences within certain 500 feet, depending on what the application a business is applying for in an area. And so the city requires businesses to notify people of them trying to come in and establish a business. I think this would have a more direct effect on every single resident on that street. So I think it is something that should be proactively notifying the people that this might go there, and they have a path to object to it themselves if they want.
No, it's doable. Again, this is not out of the ordinary. We can do it. It's just not not practice. But we can do it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, I'm looking for a motion on this to see, do we approve the left-hand turn? So that's what I'm waiting on. Is the,
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve the no left turn on Turner and Camino, Las Flores. Las Flores.
And Turner.
As requested. And Turner, yes. Your recommendation, basically, I move to approve that.
I second.
any other comments? Okay, Amanda, can we have a vote? Yes, we can. Okay. Okay.
Approve.
Approved.
Approved?
Abstain.
Deny.
Yes, please approve.
Okay.
Okay, so, sorry, I didn't know if Amanda was going to say, so what is, do we say that section is approved 4-2 with 1 abstain? Okay, so now we are on to the second part, which is the El Portal.
Correct. So this one's, I guess, a lot simpler. El Portal roundabout is fully built. Additional signage, warning signage, regulatory signage was added. Unfortunately, we did have some collisions during the past 2 years where vehicles, for various reasons, not getting into the details of why they happen, but they do either miss the roundabout or just go through the roundabout without turning, or they start turning and they lose control. Several cases happened the past 2 years, and we did have some bollards over the southwest corner to prevent these vehicles damaging the business. Lucadia Glass, you're all familiar with the location. After the most recent collision, we decided to add a more rigid, solid, protective bollard there to prevent a unfortunate situation that might happen if a similar case happens again. This design adds bollards at a shorter distance from each other, and this time the original bollards were adjacent to the business. The sidewalk was unprotected. The new set of bollards that are recommended are right at the edge of the curb, basically not allowing a vehicle that might lose control to enter the sidewalk, thus protecting the pedestrians and the business at the same time. And these are all with concrete foundations, similar, but a little less frequent on the, I guess, northeast corner. Because of the geometry, I guess we have had way less. I don't think we really had. I think we had one collision here, if I remember correctly, but nothing to the severity of the southbound collisions. So we are adding a few on this side too, to basically protect the pedestrian area on the northeast corner. And if approved, a design immunity package will go to City Council. Blessed by the City Council, these will be added in the very near future. I anticipate in the next 2 to 3 months. And we have been in communication with Lucadia Glass, and the rumble strips also on the northbound and southbound directions will create additional warning to drivers approaching the roundabout, because most of these happen during the dark at night. I'm not sure if the drivers were unfamiliar with the area or they just forgot about its existence due to different reasons. But these rumble strips would really shake the vehicle, so the drivers would hopefully recognize that there is a roundabout in front of them. I'm open to questions about this.
Any commissioners have questions? Commissioner Trout?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I think the rumble strip is a great idea, and I know we've talked a lot of times about a speed bump and how the fire department doesn't like them, so this is perhaps an alternative for us. So thanks.
Commissioner Gross?
Yeah, I mean, I applaud this so big, so thank you, Abe. I will comment, though, on what I think Commissioner Hansberger said, which is a little bit of an unfortunate trend, which is it seems like we upgrade things and then we upgrade them more. This is our newest roundabout. It is already well done. I've been documenting crashes at Leucadia Boulevard and Hymettus for years now. There's one every, if you put bollards in there, there'd be a car wrapped around a pole every week. So I'm just a little, my only unfortunate thing is like, why aren't we also upgrading the other roundabouts that desperately need it? We just need bigger collisions, like, or, because there's definitely collisions. They haven't gone through houses and stuff, but yeah, is there some, can we make this for all roundabouts? Rumble strips are a great idea.
With regards to the bollards, we have designs for other roundabouts as well. It's just a matter of funding at this point. This was about 15, 20,000, and those were about 40,000 altogether. So it's just a matter of funding shortages and the priorities. The severity of the collisions happen here versus those. But with regards to rumble strips, unfortunately, they create a lot of noise. And to put them in more residential areas in lieu of speed cushions is really not feasible at a lot of areas. Maybe 10% of our roads we can do this, but it's not, especially at night, they would wake you up if it's close to your house.
Okay.
Could I comment that I am, sorry.
It's okay. Can I just do really
Of course.
quick? If you would like to make a comment, you can just fill out a form, and you are definitely welcome to have a public speaking. Does that sound good? Oh, no, that's okay. I just wanted to let you know, thank you. That's how we do it. And Amanda's going to help you right here. So you just fill out that form. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Wong.
Just a short comment. So I'm all in favor of this because with the addition of this roundabout, it seems like drivers take it as a slalom, that they want to test out their new sports car and see how fast they can get through it. I think the bollards, it's good to protect the pedestrians, but I'm not sure it'll really slow down traffic. The rumble strips are a great idea. If there's some other way of slowing down traffic, it'd be even better, like narrowing the road or something, whatever the fire department allows. But this makes the slalom a little more challenging, that's all. The consequences are more challenging, but I'm not sure why it'll really slow down traffic that much. But thank you for your analysis.
Any other commissioners? I think we have one public speaker. Commissioner Thiele? No.
Sorry, can I make a
Yeah.
comment? Thank you, Chair. Are those sharrows that are marked? I haven't been through there lately, well, on my bike, but either driving or on my bike. Are those sharrows in the roundabout?
That's a real aerial.
Thank you.
Rick Smith?
Abraham and I, we talk quite often, my wife. The only place you could do it, how ironic, is by where Lou's record is. That's far enough away from the motel that you wouldn't do it. That's where the first Leucadia Glass was, that hotel. So that's something, I don't know if they do sound things, but that's about the only place it could be done. As far as the signage about the traffic in the circle where you don't enter this thing, that's really mandatory for this one, and I hope it will be put for the next one down at the other end of Leucadia. There's not near amount of traffic on Santa Fe or Leucadia Boulevard as there is 101. And if you just sat there in my office and looked out during the day, you'd go, wow, wow. So it's just such a high traffic, and some of the answers we were given is, well, everybody knows how to use roundabouts. First time I went back to Boston, I kept going around and round and round in the circle, but we've had probably a half dozen people going north, and they get to the roundabout, and they just turn left to go to El Porto. And, I mean, it's just scary, so if you could work on just signage, Leucadia Glass doesn't have anything to do with it, it's just, to me, a safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So can you address that, Abe? His comment about he's asking for a sign that says yield to traffic in the traffic circle. I think we do have that sign on some of our current roundabouts. Like I think they're on Leucadia Boulevard. Is that correct?
Correct. We are looking into this. The concerns, I think, when they went in, either they were in MUTCD or they were just added. I don't think they are there anymore. So the idea was to remove the ones that are existing in the city, but we're looking into this to see if we are keeping those, we will add one for here. But I have a feeling they're not in MUTCD anymore. But I'll double check that.
Okay, so Abe's going to look into this for you. Thank you.
I mean, our safety should rule, not over, we don't have to do something.
Yeah.
And they're all, and all the other ones, and if you remove them.
Thank you so much for sticking around for 2.5 hours for this agenda item. Yes, it's much appreciated. So do we have any other, I just have a quick question, if everybody else is done. The bollards, are they just going to be concrete and they're not going to be red, right? They're just going to be like concrete colored?
Green.
Oh, they're green.
All the lamp posts and everything, so they blend in with everything.
Okay.
I don't think they would be green.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think they're either white or yellow. I don't think because green are mostly for bikes. We don't do greens. Yeah, I know we're showing them red here, but I want to say they're either white or yellow.
Okay.
They would have reflectors on them, but I have a feeling technically they have to be white.
Okay.
Yeah, but when the design package goes to council, we would add the color. I have a feeling they have to be white.
Okay. I just was thinking a color would kind of be a bit of an eyesore. So that intersection is so beautiful. It's really spectacular. So I'm hoping the design element of that will match the aesthetic that's out there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay.
One quick question, one last one. Seeing the investment in these, I mean, their construction, but they will get hit, and when they get hit, I'm sure they will break and need to be replaced. Can the city charge the driver who destroys them?
I do know we have a reimbursement process in effect for our signs and traffic signals. But if a curb is damaged or a concrete bollard is broken, that's a Public Works Department thing. I'm pretty sure the procedure is in place, but if they do pursue that for something like a concrete, I don't know if somebody breaks a curb, if the curb is repaired, they're being reimbursed. I can check on that. But I do know we do that for our traffic light, for traffic signals, for street lights, for signs. They do get reimbursement from the insurance.
Hey, what's the speed necessary to destroy a bollard?
For these ones, I think at least 30, 35 at a minimum.
You can destroy them at 35?
Yeah, they would still collapse, but they would take the majority of the hit, like the momentum. We don't want to create something that's because that would kill the driver for sure.
Yeah, there's different speed ratings on those bollards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good news, I mean, the challenge we have on Leucadia Boulevard is they knock the lights down in a hit and run, and then we don't have the lights anymore. So it's a big problem. So the bollard, if you hit the bollards, you're not going to hit and run. You're going to be stuck. So that would be good.
I do think, thinking of this financially too, we still do not have a street light on Leucadia Boulevard. We're still waiting. And if we did have those bollards, that car would then be stopped. We could go after the person to reimburse the city for the damage they've caused, which I think when we think about the reasoning there, that might be some way to look at it, because the other thing we've lost when these cars are jumping the curbs as well at these roundabouts, they're taking out a lot of our plants. Like, we also, besides losing a streetlight, we lost a beautiful aloe tree that still hasn't been replaced. It's just a big hole. So I just think it is important that the drivers that, cause the harm to the city, that we do have a policy, or the city has a policy to go after the drivers to, just use their insurance to replace what they damaged. If they had hit a car, the insurance would cover it. So they need to cover the damage to the city. So,
Again, that's beyond like our division. Do you know, Amanda, about like if they damage a tree or a plant or something?
they are charged. Okay. Okay, good. Good. It hasn't happened for us, but good. I'm glad that we've got that in place. Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have questions, comments?
A bit of a tangent, but I'd be curious. I know this was a specific issue that we wanted to take up for the year that you were presenting to the council last week.
Yes.
The week before.
It is, and that is our next agenda. Letter A, we can address that there, but thank you so much for circling back. Yeah. Okay, well, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval of the, what do you call them, pylons? No, bollards.
Bollards.
Yes, as recommended by our traffic engineer.
Second?
Second? Okay, all in favor? Do you want to do a electronic vote, or would you like us to just do verbal?
I think verbal is better.
Sure. Okay.
Sorry. Chair Hansberger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Trouth,
Yes.
Commissioner Duncan,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross. Yes. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Thiele,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, fabulous. Well, then, both designs have been approved, so we are on to 8A, which is updates on the MTSC work plan. Abe, did you want to lead with that?
Yes, sure. So I'm not sure if commissioners followed the conversation we had with council last week where this item was presented. I guess it was a combination of positive and somewhat negative. When I spoke with Chair after, she felt it was all positive. I felt like there was some negativity. So the idea of council, if you didn't get to watch it, was that they liked the idea of a work plan very much. They were very positive about the whole gist of this, where commission kind of notifies council if these are the stuff they want to work on. Many of the projects on that list, they started kind of talking about them one by one, and then they noticed it's a long list and they might not get all the way to the end of it. But from the chatter on DICE, you could feel like they did like a lot of the ideas in there. There were some that they specifically mentioned that they did not like to pursue at this time. However, as the conversation kind of evolved, and Chair, correct me if you feel I understood it wrong, the tone changed a little bit in a way that, well, instead of this happening, while these are great ideas, why not we tell commission what we want from them, which from the get-go, we thought it would have been great if they did it, but unfortunately it never happened in the past few years. So at the end of the item, instead of them greenlighting some of the rows and rejecting some of the rows of the work plan and approving or rejecting the work plan, the idea was let's schedule another meeting and us maybe using that as a base, create some sort of a work plan for the commission. Now, I haven't talked to our clerks to find out what the plan for the potential joint meeting is at, but that was the idea, to revisit this basically either with or without the commission. That part I'm not sure about, to sit with the commissioners and figure out what the work plan for the next fiscal year should be. Well, I guess for the current fiscal year. And Chair, if you want to add anything, if you feel like this was a good summary of what happened?
Yes, I think it was a good summary of what happened. I also, I pulled up our, basically the description of what our commission is. I pulled it up on the Encinitas website, and I don't know if maybe, Amanda, could you get that up on the screen?
I can open it.
Because what I think would be nice at the joint meeting is to clarify the differences between our commission and the other commissions here. And I think that was where the tone changed, as Abe mentioned, where they were then feeling like we were setting priorities as opposed to them setting priorities, correct, Abe? And I think what they might not quite understand is that we, on a regular basis, have citizens come in and ask us to look into items. And they come here first because if you go to the city's website and you read what it says that it is the duty, if you look at I don't know if you've got it up there. Do you want me to send?
I can zoom it in.
Yeah, I think that looks, is that the description?
Yeah.
It looks a
so
little
what-
bit different, but like, it just says, it is the duty of this commission to serve as a liaison between the public and the council and to conduct analyses and provide recommendations to the council on matters related to safety and mobility and all modes of transportation. And so the tone of our conversation at the city council meeting turned from them looking at the projects to them then questioning how we kind of came up with these projects, was a little bit of, and I felt a little on my back foot there. And I didn't know that it was exactly my place to explain to them that, well, this is what it says is our description, and how these projects come about is that we have members of our city come in and ask for assistance, and the direction here basically asks us to go through and have we discuss these and make recommendations to the council. So I think that it would be nice to sit down with the council and the mayor and have a discussion about why these items have come up, how they ended up there. And I did also get a little bit of a feeling like they thought that some of these were like our pet projects, or, that these were things we were moving forward. But a lot of these, yes, we all have interest in, but they, many citizens are asking for these projects as well, so yes, Commissioner
Chair,
Wong.
Thank you. So I know we spent a few meetings discussing when we work our work plan, splitting in two sections, one on focus areas and one on tasks. And I don't think the focus areas were covered in the council meeting, but I think that's an important part because it kind of does what you mentioned about what our mission is. And if they signed up for that, then they would have seen that one of our important focus areas is community liaison, plus all the other ones that are on there. But community liaison is important, but we should have emphasized focus areas, I believe, and have them agree to that first, because that's the general overview. And then the tasks, which is the only thing they covered, is a secondary part. Because once you sign up for the general plan, it's like a general plan, like our general plan, and then you focus on tasks. So that's why I think it's done.
Yes, I think it will be great. I think it's going to be nice to just have a joint meeting to discuss all of this and try to lay it out. What do you think, Abe?
No, I certainly think that joint meeting is the best approach. Everybody would be on the same page, and I feel like the reason I did not include it because my impression was that they know what our Muni Code says and what the focus of the commission is. We kind of touched on it when we said this is the role of the commission liaison. I think it was the third or fourth slide when we kind of covered the Muni Code and how the commission operates. We didn't have the specific table, but I think we did touch on they're supposed to act as a liaison too, with public for the council. It was there, One thing I think that also we didn't mention was that they felt like the list was very long, was not within the capacity of the staff and commission to cover that many items in 1 year, which we did internally discuss during those 3-4 meetings, but we just couldn't trim the work plan enough to make it shorter. I'm pretty sure if we sit together with council, the list will end up, I think they specifically mentioned that we like 2 or 3 items max. It was mentioned, I don't remember if it was mayor or it did make it to the motion, but they said we don't want this many items. We want a focused approach on 2 or 3 specific tasks. I don't know if they asked you, Chair, to talk to the commission to trim it down before that joint meeting. I mean, you can watch it if you have time. I mean, it's a good 20, 30 minutes, and you'd get a feel of how council feels about it. But I'll double check it. And I'll also check the actual motion. I don't think it's released yet, but I can check the actual motion of the council.
It was interesting. I can't remember if it was Councilmember Blackwell that suggested it, but they were saying maybe like 3 to 5, because or maybe she said 2 to 3. I can't remember. We'll have to go back and look. But it is interesting to me because if you look at the plan for the Environmental Commission, theirs is really long. I'm pretty sure their work plan is a very long work plan. Now, again, it's different because you have individual commissioners working on things there. You know, when I was on that commission, I helped do the helium balloon ordinance, and we worked, on that. But everybody on that commission kind of took on different roles. But as you pointed out, that can't happen here because you have to have the engineers doing these items, and you have to, it's legal. So anyway, it seemed a little contradictory to me, just that they were asking for a shorter work plan, yet there are other groups that have very long work plans, right? So, and then they were asking for more specifics, but then it seemed like some of them were too specific. So again, maybe was that my interpretation, or were you also getting that?
No, I agree with you. But again, the core of the problem was that this was kind of being done backwards. We were kind of trying to force this situation to get a work plan from council by proposing a work plan without council really. So this created that. But as we discussed after the meeting, I think the positivity is that now council does know what the concern of the commission is, and we do need some sort of a direction from council with regards to how we want to proceed. It might be, hey, out of these 16, only take 2, only take 5, or no, forget about what you wrote, here's our 5 for you. But I think in the very near future, we would have an answer to our work plan, one way or another, which that would be, I guess, a positive news.
Okay, good. So that's just the update. I guess we'll wait to hear from you when we're going to have our joint meeting and what our next direction is.
Yes, I will try hard to make it happen ASAP.
Okay, good. Commissioner Wong?
Yes. Could I just mention that I think one of the advantages of having a work plan is that lets us keep a list of to-do items, even if we can't work on it right away, but there are items that we want to keep in mind that we won't forget. And those are items that it sounded like the council did not want to have on the work plan, but I think some of those items are, for instance, on your follow-up log, they're put there maybe for deferred attention later.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to explain like a few of those items. I said, well, yeah, it's not like, because I think one of the council members mentioned these just be projects for the budget season, for them being prioritized at the budget season. And I tried to explain that there needs to be some legwork before they become a project for your consideration during the budget season. We would have to analyze, evaluate, maybe design something to be able to get even to a point that has a cost estimate or a price tag by it for you guys to consider. But it kind of get lost in the conversation. I did try to clarify that it's not just a name on a list and then you vote for it in March. It needs to, we don't even know. I think these are all topics for that joint meeting to discuss.
Correct. Also, as community liaison, then if a resident has an idea for some change, what are we supposed to do with that? Because if we're, that is going to be a bubble up type thing rather than things flowing down. And in the past, I've always thought the council wanted bubble-up ideas so that their ideas that come from their grassroots ideas rather than always them dictating what goes down. So,
Well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. There certainly needs to be, I guess, a two-way traffic between the work plan items from the commission side and the council side. Or I guess the scale of those could be different. Like commission, certainly, from what we heard, I think it was pretty obvious if you listen to it. Council does not want to hear ideas or projects with price tags of, $50K or above without a clear direction from council. But if ideas and suggestions from this side are policy suggestions, items without a serious price tag, I'm sure they will be open to it. I think that, again, these are my assumptions from what I heard from them. They are probably open to ideas and suggestions, but I don't think they're open to projects. That's
I mean, if I remember correctly, they want us to set some priorities on the projects, and I don't know whether we can do that because we have no budgetary power, and any decisions have to have some. I mean, any decisions are cost benefit, and we don't have any control over cost. That is what you mentioned before. If there's a new idea, then it needs to be studied first, which will of course take some staff time, but then it's not doing the whole project. So,
yeah, no, there's certainly complications. We gotta iron out how we want. Yeah, maybe again, these are all good chats for that joint meeting with council.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
I actually went to that meeting, and
Thank you for attending.
okay.
I appreciate it.
And I'd comment that this is an election year, and the council members have to demonstrate that they're in charge, which is probably an underlying fact. I went there to speak especially on the possibility of studying the Waymo. How do you spell it? How do you pronounce it? Waymo. Waymo, yes. Okay. And during the meeting, first of all, the mayor picked the Waymo thing as something that's that he doesn't want to have there. And then I spoke up and said we have to think about the future. Because we are going to have driverless vehicles on the street in this city within the next 10 years, probably by the end of this decade. And that created a little disturbance because I was contradicting the mayor. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
You made him mad, though.
Yeah, that's all right. His concern is that particular item is a future item. It's not something for the current year, and I'd agree to that. We want to start studying it at some point, but perhaps this year isn't. And he was concerned about liability to the city, which is, I think, a valid concern. Depending on how this is done, if it's done the way Uber was done, these are just all of a sudden more cars on the street, and the city council didn't approve it or didn't oppose it. But if the city council charges a franchise fee for this, and there's an accident, the city's got the deepest pockets. My impression was that that I kicked over a hornet's nest, so to speak. But it's good that we'll talk to the council and get a better work plan out of this. I think I did send everyone a notice that 3 days after that meeting, Musk announced that Tesla was going to come up with a two-person vehicle autonomous within the next 3 years, which means that he'll probably get it done in 10. Okay. These things are coming, and the city has to be prepared for them. The mayor doesn't want to spend staff time on it this year because there are other priorities.
Thanks for taking the bee stings, Commissioner Johnson from the Hornet's Nest. Yeah, I think, Gabe, it is frustrating to hear the response. I do think in order for us to have the meeting, we need to understand what they would want from us to make sure that these aren't pet projects. We put forth the commission to the council on additional sheriffs. I think we've basically got crickets back on that. We did additional work. We know there's very big problems with speeding and with collisions in the city. So I take offense to the idea that these are pet projects, and I want to understand if we're going to have this meeting. We've already put considerable time into putting that forward. What is expected going into that meeting and what's expected coming out of that meeting? Because we don't serve the council, we serve the residents of Encinitas.
Yeah, I mean, short of the official motion, instead of me just passing the message, I would just recommend spend 20, 30 minutes and watch the video. That would be the best. Because, I mean, they didn't give me any kind of a specific separate message other than what I heard at that meeting with Chair. So, I mean, I think it would be a lot better if you just watched it. And again, the motion, I don't even think there was a clear, is the motion really, is the minutes released yet? I don't think they are. Yeah, they're usually about 2 weeks behind, so I don't think it is out yet.
I'm not sure either. I am interested to know if we're going to have our joint meeting before the end of the year.
And I can certainly ask if it's scheduled. I would ask our city clerks or through the briefings with the directors and city manager's office. I would ask them to ask the council members what do they want our commissioners to provide or prep for that meeting. I will certainly ask that.
That would be great. And I liked Commissioner Gross's suggestion of, what do they want going in and what are they looking for coming out, So I think that's fabulous, yeah. And I do think it was important, Commissioner Johnson, that you brought up the Waymo, and I think at the meeting, you actually tied it to one of the mini city action plans. I can't remember what you said, but one of them, you tied it in there, and I can't remember what it was, but I thought it was very thoughtful of you. Do you remember?
One of the last item on the mobility.
The mobility. Okay, it was part of the mobility element. Thank you.
It is part of the mobility element.
Yes.
It's a pie in the sky part of it.
But it's there. But it was there. So thank you. That was, yes, it was good.
Yeah,
Okay.
the minutes are not out yet. I just checked. The minutes are not out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments about our work plan? Spending an awful lot of time on our work plan here. Okay.
Well, hopefully it's just this time. In the next year and the years after, it probably will be a lot more smooth.
Good. Okay, we're on to B, safety and mobility project updates. Okay, I'm going to let everybody check that out, and then if anybody has any questions, comments. Okay, any questions, comments for anybody? I'm not sure I see it on here, but is the at-grade crossings in Leucadia, I know we have talked about many times before. I don't know if it's on this one or on
I think
the
it might be on the
follow-up?
follow-up log. Yeah,
Okay.
because that's not a traffic division project.
Yes,
That's with our CIP, but
yeah.
yeah, I can ask the
Well, what I was.
project manager to come do a presentation for commission.
Thank you. I was going to just let everybody know that on Wednesday night's meeting, 11A agenda item, there is going to be a presentation from Rail Pros about the crossings in Leucadia. So I think that document is out, so if anybody is interested, I think that would be great. And then if we need to, Abe, that would be nice to have a follow-up, but let's see what we find out at this meeting. So that's all. I just wanted to share that. Okay. Any comments? If not, we can move on to item C, which is the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission log. Any commissioners want to speak on that? Okay. I do see that the signal timing, the signals are getting those put in, so that's great news all over town. The lead
Correct, yes.
pedestrian.
We will have 2 turn-ons before the end of the month. Santa Fe Hospital will get it, I think, next week, and then Quill and Leucadia is already turned on. That one's already functioning. Vulcan Encinitas will get it by the 28th. I mean, by getting it, the new 4-section heads are already there. They're just covered. They will be turned on, basically. And I believe Leucadia and Vulcan is the last one, which is the first week of November. But they're all there. It's just a matter of just turning them on.
Okay, great. That's great news. It's definitely going to improve safety at those intersections. Okay, any other commissioners? Okay, on to D, which is just the development project updates. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to look at those. Okay. Any comments, questions? Okay, then let's move on to number 9, Commissioner Corner. Do any commissioners have?
Chair,
I'm
for
sorry.
commission to, no, it's for the Commissioner's Corner. The commission's standard meeting in November falls on a holiday, so commissioners can discuss if they're interested to just cancel or have a special meeting a week after or sometime after that, because we don't have a December and January meeting, so I think it's better to have, we have a few items for next month.
Yes.
So if it's possible for the commissioners to agree on a date, I strongly recommend scheduling something after maybe the Monday after. What is
Okay, yes, so let me pull up a calendar here.
So our next standard one is November 11th. 18th would be the next Monday, which is still before the Thanksgiving week, so if it works for the commissioners.
Okay. I'm looking at the calendar, the 18th, would that work for commissioners? Yes, I'm seeing some nodding, okay.
Oh, it's a federal holiday. I think it's
It's Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 18th works. Should we, I'm seeing everybody nodding, just about. Okay, so yes, let's change to the 18th. Thank you for that.
It would be a special meeting, but it would be advertised the same way as the other meetings.
Okay.
So it would be just called a special mobility commission meeting.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you for that. Anybody else have anything for Commissioner's Corner? Thiele?
Thank you, Chair. Abe, do you have an update on Santa Fe?
I don't. I just know that it's going forward, not at the fastest pace, but it is going forward. And I do know that the project team is really trying hard. There are a lot of different pieces that they're putting together. There are complications with design. There are complications with the supply, availability of the poles. I think we talked about it before. I mean,
Yeah.
the strongest country in the world, wealthiest country in the world, and a signal pole is a 6-month lead. I mean, you want a simple pole, mast arm, 4-month to 6-month lead. A signal controller, a box this big, that's $2,000. Price of a regular PC computer you buy at any store. It's the same thing. It's basically a computer box, and it's $2,000, but the lead time is like 4 months. So I don't know why, and it's not like everybody's installing hundreds of signals in the country. I mean, pretty much everybody's like built, like people add a few signals every year, but I don't know, nobody goes into that business for some reason, and it's a monopoly. There are a few companies, and everybody's like 6 months. So the Santa Fe had some complications with design where they had to change some poles and mast arms, and they're now scrambling pieces together to make it work.
I did also see there was a newsletter, Commissioner Thiele, that just, I feel like I read this somewhere in the last day. I got an email that said they also had to underground power lines along there, and that caused a delay as well. There was, but the picture I did see showed that they are currently putting in the irrigation lines. So that was progress. That was, but I think.
No, yeah, we are 2-3 engineers dedicated to that. They're working day in, day out to make it happen the best feasible. There are just a lot of different elements with that. The concrete work, the sidewalks, the signals, there is a lot of different pieces, and that the school being there is certainly adding on to the complications, how they have to coordinate with the school and the pick-up, drop-off traffic. And yeah, I do know I can ask the project manager to come in and provide some updates to the commission, but I do know there's a lot going on there. I mean, we're continuously hearing about it. We're trying to help as much as we can, but traffic's involvement is really minimal.
Yeah, no doubt. There is a lot of concrete work. Absolutely. The reason I ask you is I happen to be driving down Santa Fe at around 8 midweek, and man, I only saw one kid, thankfully, on an e-bike, but no, I mean it's impossible. I was gonna ask Mr. Buck and maybe the sheriff if there's been posted alternative routes, but you can't ride a bike on that road, that's for sure.
It's going to be spectacular. I think we just all have to hang on. I'm really looking forward to the improvements and, few steps back to make a lot forward. It is going to be amazing, and I'm so thankful it's happening, and I think it was grant funded, if I'm correct. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I think 3 different grants, not just a single grant. There were like 3 or 4 different grants that is funding that.
So thank you, city staff, who all made that happen and got the money, because I know right now I've made the mistake of trying to drive over there, and it's not great, but I know it's going to be amazing. So thank you, everybody. I know construction is hard.
No, I absolutely have no doubt it's going to be fabulous when it's finished. Yeah, it's just the timing. We're 10 weeks into the school year, so that's my concern.
No, our engineers are aware. They're working with the school. They're doing their best. We have continuous talks with the contractor, with the school. I think Nick is also involved. So we're trying really hard to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on and how things are going forward. It's just the nature of construction. There's no way to do it nicely.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Commissioner?
I was just wondering if you could put any pressure on Caltrain to finish the project on Leucadia Boulevard over the 5. It's really cool what they're doing there, and making more pedestrian room, but it's still going on. It's been like 3 months now. I noticed it's also just in Carlsbad on Poinsettia, the same thing. And those projects just sit there. So maybe it's something's missing, but it makes the road really dangerous.
I mean, not on our level. We really don't have much authority to pressure. Usually electeds for Bataguitos Lagoon for the project that Caltrans has over there, and Sandag, I know Mayor has put a lot of pressure on them to minimize impact on La Costa. Like, his authority obviously does a lot of work when he's attending those meetings, working for the city. But for Leucadia, if we just contacted, they would just say, this is our right-of-way, and we're working on our right-of-way. It's really not much we can do. We noticed, I think, that they didn't even pull a permit for the traffic control that they set up in Encinitas. We did notify them. I believe that you're setting traffic control in our city without pulling a permit. But on their construction, we really don't have almost any authority because it's all their right of way.
Yeah, one unintended consequence here of the speed limit reduction is on Requesa, just east of the freeway. There's this huge dip down to Beach Street and then past the animal facility, and it's impossible to negotiate that at 20 miles an hour without heavy brake use. And I heard from one of the residents of Beach Street that they're concerned about the speeding traffic there. I don't know what the answer is. Putting a stop sign in the bottom of a dip is dumb. But that looks like just a continuing problem. Fortunately, it's not a safety problem yet.
Maybe some added enforcement. Maybe Sheriff Collis can show up there.
Well, if you start at the top there and just stop and just put your clutch down, you'll roll down the hill and you'll become 30 miles an hour at the bottom of the dip.
Yeah, Dave, I'm only going to ask because I brought it up initially, and I'm just curious. I'm not going to fall on the sword though over it, but the barriers on Manchester, I brought it up a few meetings ago, just west of the treatment facility where Manchester turns onto Manchester. If there's any status
we
of those.
dug up some history. Apparently, it was done several years ago. I thought they were way longer, but apparently they were not that long ago. But we found the engineer. It wasn't a city staff, but it was consultant at the time. The city engineer consulted with them, and it was a matter of safety for the collapse of the wall. But what kind of study it needs to decide to keep them or remove them, I don't think anything has been conducted. What it would entail, I haven't really looked into it. I can talk to our city engineer to see if we can hire somebody to study the stability of that wall and decide if we want to keep those in there or just remove them. That's a decision for our city engineer, but I can get more information on that.
Yeah, I just realized they could use those barriers for like the permanent thing on Coast Highway now for the businesses.
For the new business, yeah.
Isn't that what they're going to use to kind of make the
I think they
parklets?
decided on concrete, but I think they're going to be painted. I'm not sure if they're going to be like those. I think it's a different kind, but it is going to be concrete barrier.
Think about recycling.
Yeah. But I mean, those are, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 sitting there. I mean, if that thing comes down, I'd rather buy 6 new and just keep them there in case something happens to that wall.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Feely?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I have just a couple of questions for Mr. Buck. I was wondering, I realize that La Casa Canyon is not in San Diego District, but you mentioned the ongoing education, and we appreciate that. Is there any way, or have you discussed with Carlsbad City to see if LCC can be included in those educational forums?
City of Carlsbad continues to offer education programs to Carlsbad schools, so they're pretty content with that approach. The recent stuff that we've added with the San Diego District While the in-person classes that are held on campus at SDA are open to just SDA, Oakcrest, and Degano students, there are a couple of things on the calendar now, including the 24th, which is all about e-bikes assembly, and then also the October 28th bike-friendly driver course. And since those are different format, those are essentially promoted to the area schools, but we don't have that same kind of restriction on, that they necessarily have to be students in those schools in SCA, but rather students of the district. So it gives us a little bit of room there, but directly to your question, no, the kind of the on-campus programs are limited to just the Encinitas schools.
Okay, thanks. And you don't have any intention necessarily. Obviously, the kids live, not all, but majority live within Encinitas City.
Yeah.
So it would make sense. Either, well, maybe you invite them to SDA or somehow figure out a way to get the word out to that campus specifically.
Yeah, it is a little bit tricky in that it's the use of Encinitas dollars to fund this education for its residents. In the Carlsbad schools, while they do have their thing going with City of Carlsbad PD, and Encinitas is working with the San Diego County Bike Coalition. I can say that the San Diego County Bike Coalition is expanding their work into Carlsbad a little bit. So ultimately, it's up to the school districts to decide who their provider is and whether that be Carlsbad PD or if they look to, perhaps work with the Bike Coalition so that there's more consistency in education. We shall see, but that's something that they would need to decide.
Commissioner Buck, can I just jump in? La Costa Canyon is not a Carlsbad school. La Costa Canyon High School is a San Diego Union High School district school. It is, and it is open. I mean, it's the boundaries and the location. Yes, the zip code is 92009. I know because I teach there, and it's on all of our letterhead. But the students that attend that school live in Encinitas, and they are Encinitas residents. So I realize not holding a meeting at La Costa Canyon might not be feasible, but is there not a reason you could not open it up, as Commissioner Thiele has asked us quite a few times, just invite La Costa Canyon students to also attend the trainings or the information sessions that are happening at SDA, because they are Encinitas residents. And I realize it is our tax dollars, but most of those kids live in 92004. So,
Yeah.
and any kid that actually lives in these boundaries here, right here in the city of Encinitas, that is the school they get defaulted to unless they actually fill out an application and apply to SDA. So if you lived here in these boundaries, that is their home school. And the only way they can attend SDA is by a certain deadline. They have to fill out the paperwork and apply. So I guess Commissioner Thiele has asked a couple times, is there any way you could just try to circle back on this? Because I realize it is our dollars, but it is our kids. And those kids are riding all across this neighborhood to get out there.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for sharing that, and that's a fair question, and that's something I can absolutely look into and talk to the district about what might be an approach. And certainly there is that overlap, and there are Encinitas residents who attend that school, and even vice versa, I'd imagine. But we working with district as a partner, and in the spirit of educating our residents, first and providing for that, and with that assumption or thought that City of Carlsbad is providing for students that go to school outside of Encinitas. Yeah, there is that overlap. So let me look into that, talk to the district, and see what might be possible. Perhaps it's a situation where, Encinitas resident students attending La Costa Canyon or any other school, we can include in that education. Yeah, let me look into that and report back.
Thank you. That would be fabulous.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I did want to give one final update on the autonomous driving thing that Commissioner Johnson brought up. So yes, they unveiled the cyber cab, which is on a long timeline. But the more interesting update around autonomous vehicles from Tesla was that it looks like they'll try to go unsupervised full self-driving on the existing Model 3 and Model Y lineups as early as next year. And so they'll put the permits in for a very similar permit to what Waymo and Cruise and a couple other, and Apple has an autonomous vehicle permit with the California DMV and with the Texas DMV. I don't think it's called a DMV in Texas. And they'll submit those for approvals now, which would allow them to drive as of next year. So that's actually on a much shorter timeline than the cyber cab, which is exciting. Of course, it's a political thing, so you have to get those permits approved and everything. If anyone's watched what's happened with SpaceX recently and the California Coastal Commission, it's a very interesting time for California, and trying to make us an interplanetary species. But I think that would behoove all of us to try to get up to LA and ride the Waymos to get a sense of it, because as we have more companies in this space, it's we're still mostly moving around the city by car, and it's a very interesting innovation in car technology that could make for all mobility to be a lot safer.
Yes, and they also announced a 20-passenger vehicle that's self-driving, which would be ideal for some of the needs that our mobility element mentions. The future is coming.
Yes, it is. Okay. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done.